There's the overhead shot from the Goodyear Blimp America from Houston, Texas, with pilot Don McDuff at the controls. And here is a look at the racetrack. It's a 2-mile D-shaped oval. The turns are banked at 18 degrees. It was resurfaced just 2 years ago. We'll go 200 laps this afternoon, and they should get between 45 and 50 laps out of a tank full of fuel. In pit central this afternoon with observations throughout the race, Larry Newber.
Bob, in this season of NASCAR Parity, 12 different winners, we've seen a lot of people come from further back than 20th to win a race. Now, last week at Watkins Glen, it wasn't 20th, it was 7th, but it too was a record. You see, no previous Glen winner had ever started further back than 3rd. Now, here at MIS, if you haven't started in the top 10 in the history of Winston Cup racing here, you've never won a race. And the most popular starting slot for a winner is on the pole. Bodes pretty well for today's pole setter, right? Not necessarily. You see, this season, only once all year long has the pole setter gone on to win the race. Bob, who's in the hot seat today?
Well, certainly Bill Elliott, although he is on the pole, he has a terrific record here at Michigan International Speedway, and he has to be the favorite going in. He'll start from pole position in the Coors Ford. He broke the track record, qualifying at 174.940 miles an hour. On the outside of the front row will be Jeff Bodine in the number 5 Levi Garrett Chevrolet at 173.381. Row number 2, it's Ken Schrader in the number 25 Folger Chevrolet. Outside of that second row, Davey Allison from Hueytown, Alabama, the number 28 Haviland Ford. In row number 3, it's Dale Earnhardt from Mooresville, North Carolina in the GM Goodrich Chevrolet car number 3, and Brett Bodine in the Crisco Ford car number 15. Going to row number 4, the most recent winner here at Michigan, Rusty Wallace from St. Louis in the number 27 Kodiak Pontiac, and Alan Kowicki from Greenfield, Wisconsin, the number 7 Xerox Ford. Morgan Shepherd starts inside of row number 5 of the number 88 Red Baron Frozen Pizza Oldsmobile, and Ricky Rudd, last week's winner from Chesapeake, Virginia in the Quaker State Buick car 26. The 6th row has Dale Jarrett in the Portaloo Bud Light Buick and Mike Alexander in the Miller High Life Buick. Going to row number 7 is Phil Parsons in car number 55 and Sterling Marlin in 44. In the 8th row will be Darrell Waltrip in car number 73 and Lake Speed in number 83. The 9th row consists of number 68, Derek Cope, and 71, Dave Marcus. Row number 10, Neil Bonded in car number 75 and Terry Labonte in number 11. The 11th row, Benny Parsons in number 90 and Kyle Petty in 21. In row number 12, Rick Wilson in car number 4 and Richard Petty in 43. 13th row, Rodney Combs and Mark Martin. Row number 14, Harry Gant and Michael Waltrip. Eddie Bierschwale and Jimmy Mean start in row number 15. The 16th row, Greg Sachs and Mickey Gibbs. Dana Patton and Chad Little start in the 17th row. Row number 18, Cale Yarborough and Jim Sauter. Ken Bouchard and H.B. Bailey in row number 19. The 20th row consists of Bobby Hillen Jr. and Ernie Irvin. And the number 31 car of Donnie Allison and 98 Brad Knopfsinger start in row number 21. So there are your 42 starters. And there is one of our in-car cameras carried this afternoon by Cale Yarborough as he gets the belts tightened and set to go for 400 miles. And there is a look out the front end of the car, the Hardee's race cam providing the pictures for us this afternoon. And we also have a camera in Rick Wilson's car as he will pilot the Kodak Oldsmobile this afternoon. Rick Wilson will start from 23rd position, and he is right behind the 21st fastest qualifier, Benny Parsons. So the field warms up now and gets set to go. They should be getting the green next time around.
Should be a fast race, Bob, I think, from the beginning. Even though some of these drivers have to be very, very careful to not get in trouble, but this is the wide racetrack. It allows for 2 and 3 abreast running, and they can do that very cleanly.
Well, you know, guys, it looks like Bill Elliott is going to be a rabbit. I was talking to Ernie, and I was talking to the other people on his crew. If he can get a jump on the start, he's going to take off. If Jeff jumps him and Jeff takes off, then Ernie said that Bill might just lay back and fall in where he may. So it's going to be interesting the first few laps to see who gets the jump.
Bill Elliott has won the last 3 consecutive Champion Sparkplug 400s, and he has won the last 6 out of 7 races here overall. So Bill Elliott certainly a favorite going in. As we indicated, he shattered the track record at 174.9 yesterday in qualifying. Field begins to pick up a little bit of momentum now. They're in turn number 3, being led on the 18-degree banking by the pace car. It should be ducking off the track and into the pit area here in just a couple of moments, and will be set to go for 400 miles.
Two important factors here, Bob. One, of course, horsepower, as is the case on most racetracks, but 2 miles, the length of this racetrack. Horsepower is very important, but the handling characteristics of the car certainly come into play.
Here we go. Bill Elliott and Jeff Bodine in row number 1. Behind them, Ken Schrader and Davey Allison. The crowd is on its feet, waving and cheering. The green is out, and we're underway in the champion Spark Plug 400. As they cross the stripe, gentlemen, Jeff Bodine with about a half a car length advantage, but now Bill Elliott has pulled ahead and lengthens his lead as they go down the backstretch for the first time. Movement being made by several cars down the backstretch. Look at this 3 abreast racing. That's Dale Earnhardt on the inside. Ken Schrader in the middle as they file now into turns number 3 and 4. It'll be Bill Elliott coming off the 4th turn first, but look at the tremendous competition back there for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Elliott leads lap 1. It's Bodine second, then Davey Allison, Earnhardt, Schrader, Wallace, Brett Bodine, Morgan Shepherd, and Ricky Rudd.
Well, Elliott shot off of that second turn like a cannon, but Jeff Bodine has picked up the draft now and has moved right on his back bumper, while others battle for position.
Looks like the one with the problem right now may be Ken Schrader. He's fallen back quite a bit, and it looks like he may have got a little bit of a jump off turn 2 that time, but we'll have to watch it.
Ken Schrader has dropped back to 5th position as Earnhardt is now moved to 4th. There is the number 25 car driven by Ken Schrader, and right behind him is Rusty Wallace, the current points leader in Winston Cup competition.
Bill Elliott turned that first lap at 41.84 seconds, and that was coming up to speed. Now, his qualifying speed in seconds was 41.15 seconds.
So that first lap at 172 miles an hour compared with 174 his qualifying. There is Richard Petty right ahead of the Kodak car driven by Rick Wilson, and there is Phil Parsons right beside of Rick as they go down the backstretch.
You can see Rick Wilson already has a crack in his windshield. Something must have flown up off the racetrack and cracked the windshield.
Phil Parsons races right alongside of Rick Wilson, now headed to turn number 3. Richard Petty in 21st position. 22nd would be Phil Parsons, and then comes Rick Wilson. Here they are into the tri-oval. That's Benny Parsons on the high side of the racetrack. Richard Petty right behind him, right below him rather. And then side by side is Rick Wilson in the yellow number 4 and the 55 car driven by Phil Parsons. Benny Parsons with a fairly impressive qualifying effort here this weekend. He's been struggling recently. However, he qualified 21st fastest. Now here is Davey Allison, who has moved into 2nd spot now and is really giving a challenge to Bill Elliott. Davey Allison on the low side of the racetrack will pull alongside Bill coming through the tri-oval, and let's see who leads this lap. Elliott has him by just about a fender, but Davey is definitely on the move. Let's see how they shake out going into turn 1. Allison now moves ahead just slightly, and Davey maybe has the lead, but it's just basically side-by-side racing.
Tell you, a car really has to be working well down on the inside and be able to pull off of the turn the way that Davey Allison is on the inside of Bill Elliott.
Well, let's go down to Pit Central and Larry Newber with a comment on Bill Elliott, as now Davey Allison still just cannot grab the lead from Bill. Larry?
Well, Bob, for Davey to lead this lap officially, of course, he'll have to be nosed ahead of Bill as they come across the start-finish line. As Bill Elliott has led the early laps of this race, let's see how this goes. They're side by side. This could be a photo to stripe. It's Elliott again. Elliott has now led 12 races in 1988. He breaks from a 4-way tie with Earnhardt, Labonte, and Darrell Waltrip as the driver that has led the most number of different races this year. Davey Allison, by the way, has led 6.
Now it's a 4-car battle as Jeff Bodine has caught back up, and so is Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah, it looked like Jeff might have just seen Davey coming and moved over a little bit for him. It looks right now that those 4 cars are pretty evenly matched. Bill Elliott wasn't going to give an inch to Davey Allison. He does want to stay out front if he can.
These 4 cars have pulled away from everybody else by a few car lengths. Running back in 5th spot is still Ken Schrader, and then Rusty Wallace and Ricky Rudd.
Yeah, it looks like Davey might want to just run on Bill Elliott's back bumper for a few laps to see if they can pull away from that pair of Chevrolets behind them.
Drafting important here, Gary?
Well, they're drafting right now, but when they get into the turns, they leave a little bit more room than they would at Talladega or Daytona. They're leaving a little bit more room for somebody to slip a little bit. That's kind of likely on this type of track.
And we saw Jeff Bodine slip a little bit in the first turn. It didn't look like his car was turning as good as it needed to right in the center of the turn.
And it also appeared as if there were some tire smoke possibly coming off the Dale Earnhardt car. Kowicki and Brett Bodine are running side by side with Ricky Rudd right behind. Rudd, of course, the outstanding winner last weekend at Watkins Glen on the road course. Look at the side-by-side battle, though, in front of them as Ken Schrader and Rusty Wallace are really hooked up. Dale Earnhardt is making a move, and he has now moved into the third position. Dale Earnhardt is now third. Jeff Bodine is in fourth position. Bill Elliott continues to lead, and Davey Allison is second.
Well, Earnhardt sized Jeff Bodine up the lap before. He saw that Jeff had a weakness in the center of turns 1 and 2, and that's where he took advantage of it going into the turn.
You can see the black, where the black area on the track ends. Jeff's right there now on the edge. He's into the gray area. That's his car's sliding up there. He doesn't want to go up there, but it's going there. He needs to adjust his handling on the next pit stop.
In dirt racing, Gary, if you jump the cush and get the tires out of that groove into the high area, you're in trouble. Is that the same way it is here?
Yeah, it's even worse here because there's no cushion beyond that. Once you get in that gray area, you lose all traction. A shot a little earlier, we saw Ken Schrader's right front tire smoking when he got off into the gray. Jeff is playing right on the edge of it. Both of them are taking it right to the limit right now.
So Bill Elliott leads the champion Sparkplug 400. Davey Allison runs second. Third position belongs to Dale Earnhardt, then Jeff Bodine and Rusty Wallace. A third of the champion Sparkplug 400s have been won from pole position, and the pole sitter for this race, Bill Elliott, is currently in the lead with Davey Allison right behind him in second position. Let's go to Dick Berggren in the pit area with Ernie Elliott.
Well, Ernie, what's your strategy early in the race? Are you guys running as hard as you can at this point?
No, right now you're just trying to feel the car out and make sure that, the tires are going to be, a good combination on the car. Just making sure everything's all right.
All is calm in the pit of the leader right now.
Well, he seems to be pretty calm and collected down there, just watching the race progress. Bill is still in the lead, but it's just about a car length.
We don't anticipate the same type of tire phenomenon that we had last week at Watkins Glen, but as you see that tire smoke rolling out from underneath the lead cars, begin to think about it. Well, just a couple of facts here. No one has had tire wear in practice. It's not a race, and they have not had tire wear in practice like they did in the race last week. Although they have recorded some tire temperatures in the 250 to 260 degree range, and that's about 40 to 50 degrees higher than really what you'd like to race at, isn't it, Gary Nelson?
Well, you definitely want to keep your tire temperatures down to where the rubber can stay on the tire. If you overheat your tire, the rubber can come off, and we've seen that earlier this year at several different racetracks. I got a feeling, though, that the guys are taking it a little bit easy. They're a little spooked after all the tire problems we've had this year, so they're going to monitor the tires real close.
Well, Gary, one driver that's not taking it easy is Richard Petty, who is started in 24th position. He now is up to 13th position, and he is just slicing off one car and then the other. He's right behind Morgan Shepherd there now in the Buddy Baker car, number 88.
It's his 500th consecutive start in Winston Cup competition, and he's still looking for that 201st win. And perhaps this is the day. He's back, as Ned said, in 13th position, but has passed several cars since the drop of the green flag.
Boy, he's running, all of those cars in that group are running right to the edge. They're going to move that black area up higher and higher as the day goes on, and more cars will be able to run higher in the turns.
That's Alan Kulwicki right ahead of Richard in car number 7, and the 88 car of Morgan Shepherd. Behind Richard Petty is Neil Bonnet in car number 75. There is Morgan Shepherd, also drifting high on the racetrack in car number 88 in the substitute role again for Buddy Baker. Look at Richard go down to the inside. He and Alan Kulwicki almost touch, coming through the tri-oval. And Richard Petty continues his march toward the front, running right alongside of Alan Kulwicki, now pulling ahead just slightly as they go into the corner. Richard has the spot, and he moves up to 12.
His car is really working down on the inside. He can just drive by, as we have seen him go past several cars. Of course, when he gets on the straightaway and they start bursting that wide area of wind, that's to slow him down a little bit. But look, when he goes into the corner, he just drives it on down in there.
Indeed he does. He has the position now taken away from Alan Kulwicki. Here, meanwhile, is Davey Allison challenging Bill Elliott for the lead. And Davey Allison has the lead. As they cross the stripe, he was about a half a car length ahead of Bill Elliott. So that will count as an official lead change, but Bill Elliott stands on the gas, and as they go into the corner, he has the lead back, at least momentarily.
What do you think about Ernie Elliott's comments about, well, we're just kind of feeling the car out right now, see where it is? How'd you like to play poker with Ernie Elliott?
Average speed of the race so far, 169.81 miles an hour. We're 15 laps into the go and no cautions to this point. We might mention, we were talking about the tire situation. Both companies are here, Hoosier and Goodyear both, unlike last weekend when Hoosier failed the hoop test and had to withdraw. Now Hoosier and Goodyear both in full force here this weekend.
But I think there was only one car that started on Hoosiers here today, and that was Derek Cope. Of course, they had to start the race on the tires they qualified, and Derek Cope did qualify on the Hoosier tires.
Let's go down to the pit area quickly.
Well, you heard from Ernie Elliott a minute ago. He's the crew chief for Bill Elliott. This is Tony Price, the crew chief for Davey Allison. And Tony, is Davey trying to test Bill a little bit, or is he just going to try to push him a little bit early on?
No, we don't plan on pushing anyone early on or our race car. We talked early before the race, and we decided to run the race car at a pace that the race car was comfortable at running. And then wait till the end of the race and then really push the car. But right now, if the car was comfortable, we were just going to run it. If we can run out front, well, we'll do that.
A couple of shrewd poker players out here, Tony Price and Ernie Elliott. Neither one of their drivers are pushing the car, supposedly.
A couple of Fords are out front. Elliott in number 9 and Davey Allison in number 28. There's a good shot of Davey, and we know that his father, Bobby Allison, is watching our telecast this afternoon. And once again, we say hello, Bobby, and again, wish you a speedy recovery. We hope to see you before the season's over. Here's Davey bidding again for the lead as they come off the fourth turn onto the tri-oval. This seems to be the place where Davey can gain the momentum.
He is strong coming off of the turn. He gets a good jump as they come off of the turn. His car's working well down on the inside, and so that gives him some momentum down the straightaway. But Elliott drives a little bit deeper into turn 1, and that gives him the advantage again. But here comes Davey again down on the inside as they head off of the turn.
Dale Earnhardt continues to run in third position as we keep a close eye on this battle up front. Rusty Wallace is fourth, Jeff Bodine fifth, then Ken Schrader, Ricky Rudd, Sterling Marlin, Brett Bodine, Lake Speed. Then comes Morgan Shepherd, Richard Petty, Alan Kulwicki, Neil Bonnet, Mike Alexander, Terry Labonte, Kyle Petty, and Dale Jarrett.
Speaking of Jeff Bodine, who started on the outside pole, he has sort of slipped back in the field, Bob. He now is, Richard Petty has moved ahead of him, and he's dropping to the 13th position now as he goes into turn 1. So his car, as we saw earlier, is simply not working in the turns. We see a car down on the inside of the track going out of the pits. That was Greg Sachs, car number 50. Let's go to the pits and Jerry Punch.
Well, Dan, we're standing with the crew chief, Waddell Wilson, for Jeff Bodine. And Waddell, Jeffrey's dropping back a little bit. Is there a problem with the car?
Well, the car right now is pushing real bad, and this is the tires naturally we qualified on, and they give us a problem qualifying, so I'm hoping, we can get the tires off pretty quick because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
And Ned, you pegged it a little bit ago when you said Bodine's car was not turning in the corners. That's what pushing means. The car just will not turn, losing a lot of valuable time here in the corners.
Yeah, as Waddell was saying, the car, when Jeff goes into the corner, heads up beyond that black area. Well, now he's just had to slow down to keep it from sliding too much. I'm sure he's thinking about that right front tire getting overheated, and he just let the car come back into the pack a little bit and try and save that tire until he can get them off.
Look at this pack of cars. It's Schrader, Ricky Rudd, Richard Petty is in there. He's on the high side of the racetrack.
Drives right by him.
Yeah.
Just like if they were about to make a pit stop. Petty just went in on the outside and drove right past him.
And once again, coming off of corner number 4, Davey Allison inches his way ahead of Bill Elliott and crosses the line in the lead. Into turn number 1 now, and Davey Allison still has the advantage. These cars appear equally prepared, at least at this stage of the race.
And the crew chiefs say the same things when we interview them, that they're just feeling their cars out at the moment. So, you know, Dale Earnhardt, with these guys racing side by side, isn't really gaining on them like you would think. So they're running awful fast laps to be racing that close.
From overhead, there is a view of the first three, and there's a separation between Davey Allison in second and Dale Earnhardt, who is certainly well within striking distance, but at the moment not making a bid for the lead. We're live at Michigan International Speedway for the Champion Spark Plug 400. 24 laps are completed of 200 in the Champion Spark Plug 400. We're glad you could be with us on this beautiful Sunday afternoon here in the Irish Hills of southern Michigan. Bill Elliott and Davey Allison have been swapping the lead for the last several laps, and Bill Elliott now has the advantage as we go to pit central.
Well, Bob, you know, those of you up top were mentioning that only one car had begun this race on Hoosier tires. Well, I counted 13 teams that had Hoosiers mounted and lying on the ground in the pit, so at least 13 teams are ready to make the switch if they have to. There were a couple of teams that also had stacks that were covered with canvas. Could those have been Hoosiers? Among the teams that are ready to go to Hoosiers if they have to, nobody expects to, are the two leaders, Bill Elliott and Davey Allison. And Dick Bergen is standing by with some more details on the tire situation. It's time from the Goodyear side.
Well, Larry, one of the things that makes this race especially interesting is that Goodyear did change the tire on the left side since the teams were here last. In fact, a number of teams came here and tested, and the tire was changed after that. So a lot of teams in the garage area are really scratching, trying to figure out what they should have done to set up for this race, and some of them got caught short. One of the teams that tested was Ernie Elliott. He said, gee, maybe testing isn't even worth it anymore. They're changing tires so fast. Another fellow that was here testing was our own Gary Nelson. And Gary, I'm kind of wondering what you found out when you came here.
Well, you know, Dick, we tested for Goodyear up here with my little research and development car. Dave Marcus was the driver. We tested the tires before the June race here at Michigan, and the Goodyears were the strongest tires, and they won the race. And after that race, they thought they could have improved the left side tire. So we came back and we tried a lot of different left side tires. So this is really the same right side tire that they raced here in June with a little bit softer left side tire. So they're going to watch the wear very closely. And if the wear is good, I think everybody will stay on Goodyear.
From inside the Kodak Oldsmobile, driven by Rick Wilson, we see Michael Waltrip right ahead in the Country Time machine, and Benny Parsons is on the high side of the racetrack. Once again, pulling alongside of Rick Wilson. That is the number 12 Miller-sponsored car, driven by Mike Alexander ahead of Benny. And there is Benny on the high side of Rick Wilson.
A spider web type crack in the windshield there. Usually that type of a crack doesn't get too bad on a track with speeds at you know, in the 170 mile an hour range that they're running. But you need to keep your eye on that. If it starts to feather out, you need to change the windshield.
Some terrific dicing going on here. Alexander now is on the low side of Rick Wilson. Unable to see him as he's to the left of Rick. We can very clearly see Benny Parsons, who's up high on the racetrack, now moves the car down into the middle of the racetrack. And there is Darrell Waltrip on the inside.
I've seen him make that move 3 or 4 times today, Bob, and coming up on a couple of other cars, gets down to the inside, picks up your draft, and moves right past him. Of course, sometimes they pass him back as they go into the first turn.
And still that tremendous battle for the lead continues with Davey Allison and Bill Elliott racing side by side with each other. First one will have the lead and then the other. And there is Dale Earnhardt sitting back in third.
He's gradually catching it. He's picking up just a little bit on him, and certainly every time they get side by side, that gives him a little bit more advantage and opens the air up a little bit. He's close enough now that he can pick up the draft of those 2 cars. So I think we're going to see him move in there a little bit closer in the next few laps.
Well, you know, Dale Earnhardt sitting there in third, and Rusty Wallace, who is the next car, a little ways back and forth, all want to lead a lap. Bill Elliott's led his lap today for the 5 extra points. Dale Earnhardt's trying very hard to get a lap under green to lead real soon, and same with Rusty Wallace. Maybe if there's no caution flags very soon, they're going to try and do it on green flag, holding out on the gas mileage and trying to get a lap led.
Richard Childress, the owner of the Dale Earnhardt car, and he's with Jerry Punch.
Richard, Dale is not a patient person when it comes to wanting to lead a race.
yet he's holding back a little bit, apparently, biding his time. He's got a pretty good seat with that battle in front of him.
Yeah, you know, those two cars is pretty hard to catch with them hooked up. He says everything feels real good right there, and he's just riding it out.
Are you concerned about him using the car up early in the race here with that point battle being so close?
No, you don't win championships by taking it easy. You know, we're just going to go for it, and whatever happens, happens.
Well, apparently, maybe in a little bit, they'll tell Dale Earnhardt to go to the whip, and he'll start pounding that Goodrich Chevrolet and make his way to the front.
Well, the first car out of the race is Greg Sachs. He had made a couple of unscheduled pit stops. He now has taken the Dingman Brothers Pontiac to the garage.
Dale Earnhardt, maybe 10, 12 car lengths behind. Second place, Davey Allison, as now the leaders are beginning to catch some of the slower traffic. There's traffic in the middle of the backstretch, and Elliott and Allison are just now coming off the corner and in the middle of the backstretch.
31 laps now have been completed. They're starting to think about what are they going to do if no cautions come out. Should we change just right side tires? We know we're going to have to get gas. Maybe we should get four tires. Maybe we should come in a little early and check the tire wear, or maybe we should stretch it out and get our gas mileage.
The number 7 car of Alan Kulwicki and the 11 car of Terry Labonte are hooked up in a duel out there.
Well, they are running 13th and 14th at the moment.
And right ahead of them is Jeff Bodine, who dropped back there for a while, but now is kind of stabilized in that position.
Well, his car was pushing, and as the race goes on, that will improve a little bit as the fuel gets out of the tank. That'll lighten the rear end of the car up a little bit and take out some of the push.
Exactly, Ned. Also, that Jeff is probably taking it a little easier, and he's not overheating the tire like he was in the beginning. You don't see that smoke that you saw earlier, and the tire has cooled a little bit. Everything's kind of settled in for Jeff right now.
Now the leaders are in slower traffic. That's Brad Noxinger on the low side of the track that both Elliott and Davey Allison passed. Now they are lapping the number 10 machine driven by Ken Bouchard.
He's the top rookie contender so far this year on the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit. And they're coming up on Donnie Allison, who's making a comeback in Winston Cup racing, so to speak. Donnie was chosen this week to drive the Slender U Oldsmobile that Joe Ruttman had been driving for a while. Brad Teague started out the year in that car, and Ruttman resigned this week, so they chose Donnie, who has been running some Busch Grand National races and other short track races around the country, so it's good to see him back.
I saw Donnie wave to his nephew Davey there as he went by, so yeah, I can imagine Donnie feels good just being back in a race car in a Winston Cup race after all this time.
So Davey Allison in the Haviland Ford races right alongside Bill Elliott in the Coors Motorcraft Ford. And the question to Davey Allison a little bit earlier in the weekend, what about the tremendous Ford record here in Michigan?
In the past, the record shows that a Ford has won here more often than any other brand, but in the last couple of years, things have started to turn around. Dale Earnhardt won here last year, and the GM cars were awful strong here this year. Earlier, Rusty Wallace won. So right now, I'm not sure if the Fords have an advantage or if it's just been a matter of circumstances.
Well, I believe the Ford car does have somewhat of an advantage here. I think the track suits the engine. They don't turn quite as many RPMs, the Ford engines, as the GM engine. Richard Petty is coming in for an unscheduled pit stop. It's a little bit early for them to come in. We'll follow that while we talk about the situation as far as the Fords are concerned. Gary, I don't know what your feelings are, but it just seems to suit the Ford engines here.
Yeah, I think the Ford engine has that low-end torque that we need. Let's go to Jerry and Richard Petty's pit.
Problems for Richard Petty's having problems. The car apparently just shut off completely. He came coasting down pit road, not under power. The engine was not running. They have raised the hood. Kenny Wilson, the engine builder, and the rest of the crew, Dale Inman, are looking there trying to determine what may be the problem. Hopefully it'll be something simple, maybe an ignition box. They run back to the toolbox and they will try to decipher what's wrong with the King. But troubles on his 500th consecutive start. Richard Petty, who made his way to the front, is now sitting idle here on pit road.
Well, Jerry had made his way all the way up to 7th from his 24th starting position. Whether he pushed that car too hard, we don't know, but it's too bad for Richard Petty.
What a shame. Richard was running so good. It looks like they're changing the tires just to, in case they can get the thing going again. But it looks like they're checking a distributor. Maybe they've had a lot of problems with the distributor rotors breaking. That's probably the first thing to check.
It's been a little over 4 years since Richard Petty won a race. That was his 200th at the Firecracker 400 in July of 1984. And again, they're working slower traffic. The leaders are Bill Elliott and Davey Allison, passing the number 19 car, driven by Chad Little. There are 37 laps completed here at Michigan, and we'll be back with more in a moment. The Goodyear Blimp America from Houston, Texas, with pilot Don McDuff at the controls, providing some excellent pictures from over here. There's that awesome machine. It's 192 feet long and 50 feet tall. The Goodyear Blimp America on hand here at Michigan for our race this afternoon. And on the racetrack, it is still much the same as Davey Allison and Bill Elliott run side by side. They were dead even as they crossed the line at that point. Now here comes some pit stops. Rusty Wallace comes in for his first schedule of the afternoon. Already Mike Alexander has been in, and so has Sterling Marlin. Richard Petty sits in the pits. Let's watch the Rusty Wallace pit stop. Here's Jerry Punch.
Rusty Wallace, Kodiak, Pontiac on the jack, right side tires, Jimmy Maycar, Barry Dotson, John Dotson and the crew, and a major chassis adjustment. They really jacking weight in the right rear of the car. Off the jack, driving away, 13.8 seconds. Good pit stop for the Kodiak crew.
What about that weight adjustment, Gary? They did a lot, it looked like.
Yeah, that was a major change for a car that's running in, fourth position when he came in the pit. So you know that Rusty feels that there's more to be gained with this car. They're going to make a major change on it this first stop, and then they'll find out and make decisions later on what to do more.
But with that quick pit stop, he remained in the lead lap. You can do that here at Michigan, where it takes about 42 seconds in race conditions to run a lap around here. And if you get in and out of the pits good, make a pit stop like that, then you can do so without losing a lap. Here's Jeff Bodine coming in for a pit stop. We'll see all of them coming in within the next 10 laps.
We're on lap number 41. Bodine slides to a stop, and the crew goes to work on the machine. Also in is Bobby Hillen Jr. The clock is ticking away as they change rubber on the right side of the car. Bill Elliott is coming in, and so is Dale Earnhardt right behind him. Let's watch the Elliott crew go to work on the Coors Ford. Stopping right on the money. Let's go to Dick Berggren, who's right there.
Bob, they're going to do the same thing everybody else has done up and down pit road so far, and that is a 2-tire change. Oh no, they're going to change 4 tires on Elliott's car under the green. They are going to change the left side tires. Most everybody else has just done 2. Earnhardt is up pit road. Elliott left side up in the air, and there goes Elliott with a 4-tire change.
Well, it was a good stop, Larry. He did it in a little less than 24 seconds. That's not bad for changing 4 tires. Earnhardt only took on 2 tires, so he's been out for some 10 seconds. Davey Allison coming into the pits now. He, of course, had taken over the lead when Bill Elliott came in.
Here is Davey in the Hamilton Ford. Jerry Punch.
Davey Allison brings the Hamilton Ford to a halt, and Tony Price and the rest of the crew begin to go to work on the car. The Harry Renier on machine, running up front, and young Allison trying to get away in the first of the year. Right side tires already on as Robert Yates, the team engine builder, handles the jack. They're getting ready to get it completely full of gas. Now down goes the jack. Allison fires away. 15.32 seconds.
Davey Allison building up speed, going back out. Others that are in the pits, Phil Parsons, like speed has been in, so has Brett Bodine, and Richard Petty is moving back out onto the racetrack as we see now the leader, Ricky Rudd, who has not made a pit stop.
Phil Parsons is in the pits, getting right side tires. In fact, he almost ran over Jim Sauter as Jim Sauter was coming out of the pits, but they did avoid the collision. Donnie Allison coming down pit road, so is Eddie Beerswald. Here comes another big bunch of cars, including Michael Waltrip, Benny Parsons, Kyle Petty, and Rick Wilson.
But Ricky Rudd is going to need a pit stop here in just a few laps, maybe this time around.
Well, it was interesting to see Bill Elliott change 4 tires under green. That's a conservative move on the Elliott's part, but they might be setting themselves up for a later run with better tires. Look at Kyle Petty. He got in the pits in an awful hurry.
That car is not in the exact direction that he wants it to, but he gets out of the pits okay. There was no one pitted ahead of him, and so Kyle moves back out onto the racetrack ahead of Rick Wilson and Eddie Beerswale and others as the first series of pit stops now are being made. Let's replay what happened to Kyle Petty from the in-car of Rick Wilson.
We see Wilson coming down pit road, and Kyle locks his brakes, apparently running up on another car there, or forgot where his pits were, it looked like, and he just slid her in there sideways and cost him a little extra time.
And here is the leader, Ricky Rudd, as he is in for a stop, and Neil Bonnet, who's pitting right behind Ricky Rudd, also, it seemed, was unclear as to where he should stop, and he had to climb on the binders. The front end of the car just a little bit out of shape. They go to work on the 75 Raymock car of Neil Bonnet.
Kenny Schrader has been in for pit stop. Let's go to the pits and Dick Berggren.
I'm going to tell you what, Bonnet came in here so hot, he scattered his own pit. He literally was out of control just as he came in. Everybody scattered. Bonnet managed to gather the car up, and he didn't hit anybody. He didn't hurt anybody, but I'll tell you what else, Bonnet doesn't feel well today. They're hoping he can go the distance.
Here is one of the last to pit. Morgan Shepherd was in the lead, but now coming in, that's going to drop him from the top spot as the crew goes to work on Morgan Shepherd's car and changes rubber on the right side. Let's see if it's a 2 or a 4 tire change. I think it's going to only be 2. Indeed, there looks like they may have trouble getting the fuel in. There is Mark Martin, the Jack Roush crew, going to work on that car.
And they're making a chassis adjustment. You see the fellow making an adjustment there on the rear window. They have a wrench there that they can just make adjustments on that right rear spring.
4 tires for Mark Martin also. So Bill Elliott and Mark Martin are the only ones we've seen get 4 tires, and Mark Martin's gone quite a bit farther than Bill Elliott, about 5 laps.
The number 17 car of Darrell Waltrip is the leader. He has not made a pit stop. He's getting great mileage out of that car.
Boy, that is something.
Not unusual, though. That in fact, it seems all the Hendrick Motorsports teams are able to get good gas mileage.
Okay, Gary, tell us the secret.
Well, Darrell Waltrip definitely is holding out longer so he can get that 5-lap bonus, lead that lap, and also hoping for a caution to it. He was a little bit back in the field. When he makes his pit stop for 2 tires, he would end up a lap down if he's not careful.
Well, he's coming into the pits right now as he dips down on the inside of the racetrack. Dale Earnhardt and Dale Jarrett go by, and Waltrip comes down for his pit stop.
Richard Petty is going behind the wall. Petty's behind the wall and with serious problems. Darrell Waltrip brings the Tide Chevrolet in. Dick Berggren is there to call the stop.
Well, here's about the last to make it in, and he's parked close enough to the wall. It could well be a 2-tire stop. Just about everybody has done that. Elliott is among the very few who didn't. He took 4. Right tires going on the car. This is a good gas advantage for Waltrip. It proves he is getting good gas mileage, at least so far. 2 tires on. Waltrip is gone in 13.8. By the way, so far, every tire I've seen come off the cars looks good. Some were worried about tire problems today, but so far the tires all look terrific.
Boy, that sure is good news, Dick, to hear that the tires are working that well.
Dale Earnhardt is in the lead of this race. After all the pit stops have been made, Earnhardt is the leader, and 49 laps have been completed. We're almost a fourth of the way through this event already. We have had no caution period so far. Let's hope we can maintain that pace throughout the event and just see a great day of competition. There is the 27 car of Rusty Wallace and the 28 machine of Davey Allison battling for second position.
And that just shows you what good pit work can do. Both Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace had very good pit stops. And it looks like Davey Allison is slowing down. And Dale Jarrett is smoking in the Portaloo Bud Light Buick.
Well, I'm sure Davey's spotter told him there was oil on the track, but there's no yellow flag out yet. He shouldn't have slowed down unless he was actually in the oil.
Well, he slowed down just a little bit, but got back in the throttle as here comes Dale Jarrett in the number 1 car. A very impressive qualifying performance by Dale Jarrett this weekend. I know he had high hopes going in, but it looks like it's all going up in smoke.
Yeah, when you see that much smoke coming out, you have to go under the hood. And this far in the race, if it happens on the first few laps, you can say, well, maybe an oil line came loose or a filter blew off, but this far 100 miles into the race, usually it's terminal.
Fourth of the way through, 50 laps, average speed of the event, 167.20 miles an hour. It's Earnhardt in the lead, Wallace second, Allison third, Elliott fourth, and Marlin fifth. Just some great shots from the Hardee's in-car camera. We're watching Cale Yarborough at work on a Sunday afternoon. The camera's located where the sun visor would normally be on your passenger car, but Cale just chewing the gum and taking the 18-degree bankings in stride.
You can see him as he sort of leans into the turn, going in there, chewing his chewing gum, and then as he heads off of the turn, he'll look up in the mirror just very quickly to see where the car is behind him. There you see him look and heads down the straightaway.
Neil Bonnet apparently experiencing a broken rocker arm. The hood is up, now it goes down. The question is, will the car be pushed behind the wall or out onto the racetrack? Dick?
Well, he's going to go back on the racetrack, but he's going awfully slowly, and you can believe this is a disappointed team. Nope, he's going to go behind me into the garage area. Bob Rahilly said before this race started, the engine in this car was the strongest engine this team had ever built. Unfortunately, it didn't last.
So Neil Bonnet becomes our 4th car to go behind the wall. Greg Sachs did. So did Richard Petty, Dale Jarrett, and now the 75 car of Bonnet is behind the wall. Dale Earnhardt continues to lead this race After the first series of pit stops, Dale has the advantage. Rusty Wallace second. Third is the 28 car of Davey Allison. Then comes Bill Elliott and Sterling Marlin. We're looking out the back of the Cale Yarborough car at the leader, Dale Earnhardt. And Richard Petty is back in competition. He went behind the wall, but now Richard has gone back onto the racetrack, so his afternoon isn't over yet.
Well, Dale Jarrett has gone back out on the racetrack too, but still a lot of smoke coming from that car, and he's getting the black flag this time as he goes around. So whatever the problem was, it was not maybe inside the engine, but the smoke continues to come.
Well, let's recap the most recent series of pit stops as we go to Pit Central. Here's Larry.
Oh, Bob, Ned, and Gary, I guess it's no surprise that Richard Childress and Kirk Schummerdine and crew once again got Dale Earnhardt in and out in pretty good fashion. As you can see, in third, out in first. Bill Elliott, the big loser here, but as Gary Nelson pointed out, not necessarily the big loser. There's Dale on your screen right now. Elliott changed all 4 tires, and maybe this will set him up for fresh tires late in the race, as these pit stops sometimes have a chain reaction. You can see Davey Allison, Sterling Marlin, and Ricky Rudd, the drivers who held pretty much fourth where they were before the yellow flag. The driver missing from that list, Rusty Wallace, came into the pits in 4th position. He has since made up the ground. Rusty Wallace is still running solidly in the top 5. Well, lots of activity down here in the pits the last few minutes as the first round of routine pit stops. And Jerry Punch, of course, was standing by as always.
Well, Larry, problems for Dale Jarrett. Now, Dale Jarrett brought the Portland Bud Light Buick down pit road a minute ago, and the crew behind me began to work on the car, but they have a hole in the oil pan. So the car was coming back down pit road, and apparently they will take the car to the garage area. As Dale Jarrett has a hole in the oil pan, they will have to retire the car for today. They could not fix it. The better news for Richard Petty. Petty had a distributor problem. The timing, as we suspected on the car, was way off. They couldn't get it set on pit road. They took it back to the garage area, and now he's back in the race many laps down.
But nevertheless, Richard Petty back in the hunt. Not perhaps in a position to win this afternoon, but keeping that streak alive. There's the leader, Dale Earnhardt.
You know what we were seeing on that in-car camera of Cale Yarborough? Every time he looked in the mirror, the car he was looking at was Dale Earnhardt, who was coming up to lap him. So you could see him look in the mirror. He stopped chewing his gum and almost frowned when he saw Earnhardt coming. Now Cale is a lap down.
That's some great audio, too, because you can hear Cale getting in and out of the throttle. That is good stuff. You can hear exactly when he is on and off the throttle.
It gets almost quiet when he's on. Yeah, when he gets to the turn like that, he lets all the way off the throttle. In qualifying, a lot of the guys were just breathing the throttle maybe halfway off.
Now, Ned, we talked about this earlier before the program began. Indy cars run here flat out. I mean, they put the pedal to the metal and go. The Winston Cup stock cars actually get off the throttle for a while. Do they have to do that, or is it just better for them?
Well, they can set the car up so they can go around wide open all the way around the track, but most of the time it's not good, excepting in qualifying when they set them up a little bit looser, and they, as Gary said, do run pretty well full throttle in qualifying. But in the race, when they tighten the back end of the car up a little bit so they can run in traffic, then they need to decelerate a little bit going into turn, because if you run it in there wide open, you bind the chassis of the car up, which reduces the RPM of the engine, and then that hurts you coming off the turn. So you're much better off to back off a little bit going into the turn. The car will run freer for you.
The number 31 car of Donnie Allison is going slowly down the backstretch. This is the car that Joe Ruttman has driven recently. Brad Teague, of course, has also been behind the wheel. But now Donnie Allison has this ride for the Michigan Champion Sparkplug 400, and the car is very slow on the apron in turn number 3. Meanwhile, the lead continues to be held by Dale Earnhardt as he is in turn number 4. Coming through the tri-oval once again, and that's the number 19 car driven by Chad Little right ahead of him.
Well, Dale Earnhardt is really moving. He's pulled out a pretty big lead for this early in the race.
Chad Little, who he just went around, of course, is from Spokane, Washington. He has a law degree, just finished law school back in the spring. Decided he wanted to go racing for a while, and there's a good possibility that he might run for the Champion Sparkplug Rookie of the Year honors in 1989, and perhaps in the Jeannie Donlevy car. We have talked, and that is a possibility for next year.
Jerry Punch, what's the situation with Richard Petty?
Well, Kenny Wilson is the engine builder for the STP Pontiac. And Kenny, what exactly was the problem with the car, and is it fixed?
What happened was a piece of weld on the distributor broke and let the rotary button turn, but we put a new distributor in. We should be all right now.
No problems. He radioed in. The car's running okay now.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. He's out there passing people, but it ain't going to make much difference now. Just have to finish it out.
Tough break for the King here at Michigan.
Dale Earnhardt leads the champion Sparkplug 400 at Michigan International Speedway as we are already 62 laps into this race. It has been all green from the drop of the starting flag to right now. No cautions, everything is running well, and the average speed of the race is 167.57 miles an hour. We'll be back with more of our live coverage right after this. Thousands on hand as far as spectators are concerned. We have a cast of thousands in the announcing capacity here this afternoon. I'm Bob Jenkins. Ned Jarrett and Gary Nelson are with me here in the booth. In the pit area, Jerry Punch and Dick Berggren, and in pit central, Larry Newberg. Now, the situation is 64 laps in, no cautions to this point. In 1984, champion Sparkplug 400 was run without a caution at all, and that's the race record that they'll be shooting for. Darrell Waltrip holds it at 153.868 miles an hour. Let's give you the top 10 at this point. The leader is Dale Earnhardt. Davey Allison is running second, then Rusty Wallace. Bill Elliott is fourth, and Sterling Marlin is in fifth position. 6 through 10, Ricky Rudd, Brett Bodine, Lake Speed, Ken Schrader, and Benny Parsons.
In 11th place is Morgan Shepherd. 12th is Terry Labonte. 13th, Michael Waltrip. Alan Kowicki is 14th. Rick Wilson is 15th. Kyle Petty 16th. Jeff Bodine 17th. 18th is Phil Parsons. 19th, Harry Gant. Darrell Waltrip runs 20th, and Bobby Hillen runs 21st. 21 cars are in the lead lap, but Dale Earnhardt is coming up on Bobby Hillen and Darrell Waltrip. Not too far behind them. They're going to go a lap down before too long.
Boy, you can bet Darrell Waltrip and Bobby Hillen, Jeff Bodine even, Harry Gant, Phil Parsons, all of those cars are really subject to losing a lap in the next few laps if a caution doesn't come out. I know they're hoping for a caution period right now.
This is Alan Kowicki in the number 7 Xerox car. That's the number 96 car of Dana Patton on the high side of the racetrack. Below him is the 71 car driven by Dave Marcus. Then we have the 31 car of Donnie Allison. And this car, Rick Wilson, the Kodak Oldsmobile in car.
It appears that
look at him motioning to Dana Patton, who's right ahead of him. Get over, let me by.
Well, we see the car number 31 of Donnie Allison back out there. Apparently he had run out of gas when we saw him coasting in a little while ago. He's getting passed right now by Rick Wilson.
And here comes Rick through the tri-oval. He has the inside line. Dana Patton, the red and white car. Number 96.
But you know these drivers are thinking this race could go with no cautions. If that happens, any half a second or any fraction of a second that you lose on the racetrack is going to cost you in finishing positions later. So Rick Wilson is getting awful anxious trying to get around Davey Allison.
Well, Dale Earnhardt has just gone around Darrell Waltrip and put him a lap down. That leaves 20 cars in the lead lap, and he's moving right up on the car of Bobby Hillen.
There's the leader, Dale Earnhardt.
He goes around. Bobby Hillen puts him a lap down, so that now leaves 19 cars in the lead lap. Harry Gant is the next car that would be on the lead lap. He's about 3 seconds ahead of Earnhardt.
I measured the time. Dale Earnhardt is exactly 12 seconds ahead of Bill Elliott, and that's about the difference in their pit stops from 4 tires and 2 tires. So Dale Earnhardt isn't losing any ground to Bill Elliott with the older left side tires. Bill Elliott having 4 fresh tires didn't make up the difference that he lost on the pit stop.
Let's go back and check on a battle for 5th position. It involves Sterling Marlin in car number 44 and Ricky Rudd in car number 26.
Both of those cars running very well. Both of them had good pit stops. Marlin came in a little bit earlier than most of the others, but Rudd now giving a fit for that number 5 position.
Rudd, of course, last weekend pulled off the victory, beating Rusty Wallace by inches, registering his first Winston Cup win of 1988 in the Kenny Bernstein owned car.
You can see Richard Petty right ahead of them. He's having no problem holding his own, staying ahead of them. car's running well now, but unfortunately he's many laps down.
You know, that rotor button that they broke is something that a lot of teams have been having problems with lately. I think the quality of the material has gone down. It's a stock part that you can go down to your automotive parts store and buy, and it's something that a lot of people are looking at, trying to make a better one, improve it, because it is such a fragile piece of, it's really plastic. It's in there that when it takes one little jar, it breaks and it throws the timing off, and it's a 10-minute pit stop to fix it.
I was going to say, it obviously doesn't take long to fix because Richard is only back in the garage area for 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Sterling Marlin in the blue and white Piedmont Oldsmobile, and Ricky Rudd, 5th and 6th. The leader is in traffic meanwhile. The leader is Dale Earnhardt. There he is, putting another lap on Ernie Irvan, so this car doesn't count as far as number of cars on the lead lap. Ernie now goes 2 laps down, and Harry Gant will be the next one to go.
Bob, we talked last week about Morgan Shepherd driving for so many different teams this year. He has driven for 6 different teams. He started out for the Tom Winkle team, car number 97, and then he ran his own car for a few races. Then he relief drove for Kyle Petty, I think it was at Bristol, and then he drove the 75 car for Neil Bonney when Neil was out for a while, and then also he drove the 33 car when Harry Gant was out, and now in the car number 88 of Buddy Baker, who is sick, and he has led a lap here today, and is the 5th different car owner that he has led in this year. And for more on that, let's go to Jerry Punch in his picks.
Well, Ned, let's give an update on Buddy Baker first. Buddy is sitting back at home, and the Red Baron Pizza crew, Buddy, are working their tails off here. And as you know, your driver, Morgan Shepherd, has already led a lap. I spoke to Buddy earlier this morning. He is out of the hospital. He is home. He came home yesterday. He will be away from racing for at least a week or 2 more, and he will probably not drive for the remainder of the year. They will put Morgan Shepherd in the car for all but 5 races. Morgan already has a deal announced with the Heinz Ketchup people to run his own car for 5 events. The big question was, who would Buddy Baker and Joey Knuckles and this crew put in the Red Baron Pizza car next week at Bristol? They have an announcement to make. And Joey, who's the lucky young driver you're going to put in the car at Bristol?
Well, it's a good friend of ours, and a lot of people in this division, as far as driver-wise, would really like to see him getting a real good car like our Red Baron Oldsmobile. That driver's name's Rick Mast.
Rick Mast, 31-year-old driver from Rockbridge, Bath, Virginia. He won his first ever Busch Grand National race a year ago here on ESPN at Dover, Delaware. So congratulations to Rick Mast. You'll see him next week in this car at Bristol, Tennessee. Let's go up pit road to Dick Berggren. Dick?
Jerry, I'm in Rusty Wallace pit. Right now, nobody's standing in the shade, but this little computer is sitting in the shade, and it's doing a great job of plotting what Rusty is doing this afternoon. Every time he comes by, Ken Hammond presses one of the function keys, and that records the lap time of the car. They get real busy when there's pit stops because they have to record the amount of fuel that gets used, and this computer is going to read out from just that little bit of information how much fuel range they've got, how many miles per gallon they've got. By the way, it's a little bit over 4 miles to the gallon in a Winston Cup car. How many laps they should go before they're going to need fuel again. They also input which tires they're running. The tires are numbered. So this computer is keeping track of which tires they're using and which ones they're not. Boy, it's gone a long ways from paper and pencil, hasn't it?
Well, Dick, it's amazing what computers are doing for stock car racing. You know, NASCAR won't allow any computers on board on the race cars, but in the pits they're starting to show up more and more often. I have some personal experience with that particular computer that they're using in the Rusty Wallace pit, and it's amazing what it does. It can time several different cars. It checks the caution flag lap mileage. It checks the green flag lap mileage. They do their tire stagger. They jet their engines by it. It's just amazing how smart the computers really are and what an aid they are to racing.
Well, Dale Earnhardt finds himself in some heavy traffic as he moves around. Harry Gant puts a lap on him. That's Kyle Petty in the Citgo Ford right in front of him. And then Jeff Bodine is not too far up there. And Phil Parsons is not too far away. So Earnhardt putting a lot of cars a lap down. Now they're only 18 in the lead lap.
Dale Earnhardt leads the Champion Smart Plug 400 from Michigan International live on ESPN. We'll be right back. And Rusty Wallace is coming in for his pit stop, his second pit stop. Dick Berggren is there to call it.
Well, Bobby's in earlier than any of the other teams for a second pit stop, and the reason is they wanted to take a look at the tires. Just up pit road, Mark Martin had blistered a left front, and they wanted to see what the left side tires look like on Rusty Wallace's car. So far, everything looks just fine, but that's the reason for the early pit stop. Just precautionary. Left side tires at 12.8 seconds, and he's gone.
Well, that good pit stop might keep him in the lead lap, Dick. as Dale Earnhardt comes off of turn 4, Wallace getting his speed up as he heads back out on the track. It's going to be close, but he might be able to stay in the lead lap.
Well, there's really no big deal because he made the pit stop early. The only thing it does is put him off sequence. Now, can that play a factor in the outcome?
Well, when the tires drop off, I haven't seen that here yet at Michigan, but in a lot of races, if your tires are getting slower and slower as you run along, if you can stop early and get fresh tires, you might run maybe a quarter of a second per lap quicker than your competition. Even though you may have equal pit stops, you'll come out that much ahead of the guy you were running with. Rusty Wallace's team, I think, is looking at that also to see if they can run these next few laps a little bit quicker than Earnhardt.
Well, we see Dale Earnhardt there coming up on Phil Parsons. He's already put Jeff Bodine a lap down, now trying to put Phil Parsons a lap down. There are 16 cars in the lead lap at the moment.
Dave Marcus is in for a pit stop.
Dave had a good qualifying run here in his Lifebuoy Chevrolet, but he said the engine that he qualified on that ran awfully well for him went sour on him yesterday afternoon in practice. He had to put another engine in it. In fact, it was an engine that he ran 400 miles at Daytona back on July 2nd. He said, I just hope she'll last.
Well, these pit stops that are off sequence are for tires, not necessarily because of fuel consumption. Right, Larry?
Yeah, Bob, that's right. And, you know, Gary was talking about the computer that they use to determine fuel consumption. We put our own computer to work down here, our brains. You're looking at the gas station here. After every round of pit stops, all the crews come back here and fill up their fuel cans that they've used to dump into the race car. Now, that might give you an indication of what the fuel mileage is. Depending on how much fuel they put in their cans, you can tell how much they use, therefore, in the car. Now, you might be interested to know that the worst mileage of all the front runners during the last set of pit stops was turned in by Rusty Wallace, who turned in less than 4 miles a gallon, while Ricky Rudd delivered 5 miles a gallon. That was the best of all the leaders.
Well, Larry, that's a perfect indication of what we were talking about at the top of the show. It appears that Rusty Wallace has set his car up conservatively to be sure they're running in the finish of the race. Look at Earnhardt. He's trying to get around Rick Wilson there for another position, or to put Rick Wilson a lap down. But you know, Rusty Wallace's team is really chasing this points title. They've set up their carburetor a little rich, burns a little more fuel. They have to stop a little earlier, but there's a lot more insurance on the engine running longer.
Rusty has also told me that here in June he did not get too good a gas mileage, and he said that his car sticks so well in the turns that he is on the accelerator more than a lot of other drivers, and that cuts down on his fuel mileage. So he's bragging on his chassis people, I guess. Phil Parsons just made a pit stop. He's going back out, and Terry Labonte coming down pit road right now, and so is the car number 68 of Derek Cope.
14 cars are now in the lead lap. Junior Johnson's crew is ready as Terry Labonte slides to a stop.
Looks pretty routine. Left sides, they got right sides the time before. Bill Elliott's, it's going to be very interesting to see what tires Bill Elliott changes. I would bet they only change rights on Bill Elliott's car.
I would guess that would be the case because all 4 tires didn't seem to help him that much. He's running good. That was a 17.5-second pit stop for Terry Labonte, but it didn't seem that they picked him up that much on the racetrack. Mike Alexander coming in as Bobby Hillen goes out of the pits. So second round pit stop, green flag, pit stops coming up.
It has been all green to this point. No caution flags have interrupted the pace of this event, and the pace is 168.07 miles an hour. There you can see the Dale Earnhardt crew members. They are waiting for Dale to make his second scheduled stop of the afternoon. He is on the backstretch. It appears as if Richard Petty, yes, Richard is coming in again. Remember, he spent several laps behind the pit wall, replacing a broken distributor, and it appears as if he is going behind the wall again. Indeed, he is. So, for the second time this afternoon, Richard Petty goes to the garage area in his 500th consecutive start. Let's go to Jerry Punch as Dale Earnhardt comes in.
The leader, Dale Earnhardt, brings the Wranglers, the Goodrich Chevrolet down pit road, and the crew is going to work. David Smith puts the jack beneath the car. Kirk Shelburne, the crew chief, has the right front tire already off. And they've already changed right side tires on their one previous pit stop. That was 42 laps ago. Davey Allison is also in. Allison's crew getting left side tires on the Haviland Ford. And now the Goodrich car will get left side tires as well. Davey Allison on the bottom of the screen, the Earnhardt car on the top of the screen. Allison's car down the way with only 2 left side tires. Earnhardt's car now down the way with 4 fresh tires.
So Davey makes up a position as he gets in and out of the pits just a little bit quicker than Dale Earnhardt.
But Earnhardt didn't lose a great deal by changing 4 tires. That was a very good 4-tire pit stop that he made there.
And there now is the leader, Bill Elliott, who goes into the top spot. And here comes Elliott for his stop.
Okay, here's what we've been wanting to see. What is Bill Elliott's crew going to do? They've had 4 tires on the first stop. They can change right sides here and take off, and they should be even with Dale Earnhardt. They should be able to pull out from this pit stop if they only change rights and be even with Earnhardt. Let's see if they decide to go for lefts. That would be a very conservative move at this point.
Yeah, I believe they'll only change the right side, Gary. I agree with you on that, and that indeed is all they're doing, and that was a good pit stop, 14 to 16 seconds.
That should put him back even on the racetrack with Dale Earnhardt, or very close to him.
We'll see how things shake out here. Sterling Marlin pulls out of the pits. He's completed his second stop. Brett Bodine is in, so is Benny Parsons.
Both of those drivers having good runs, running in the top 10 when they came into the pits. Bodine gets his service and beats Benny Parsons out of the pits by just a bit. He came in a little bit ahead of him.
Elliott building up momentum going down the backstretch, setting sail for the leader of this race. There is Ricky Rudd. He is the leader, but he has not made his second pit stop. These pit stops occurring on lap number 87. We're now on lap number 88. So Rudd will go beyond lap 88 before he comes in.
Well, Bill Elliott's going to be about 4 or 5 seconds behind Dale Earnhardt now that they've gotten their speed up. And speaking of speed, Lake Speed has just made his pit stop. Left side tires. Kyle Petty's in the pits. Here comes Mark Martin.
And here comes Ricky Rudd. Rudd slowing down, diving low on the 4th turn banking and entering the pit area as the Larry McReynolds-led team goes to work on his car. Kyle Petty pulling out right ahead of Ricky, and here's Rudd for his stop there on the left side. Let's go to Jerry.
Well, 29-year-old Larry McReynolds and the Quaker State team of Kenny Bernstein changing left side tires on Ricky Rudd's car. And they look at the right side tires to make sure everything's okay, but it'll only be a left side tire change. The car down off the jacks, full of fuel. He's down and away. 13 2/10 seconds.
Rudd out of the pits. And now, with 89 laps to go, just about everyone has made his second series of pit stops, and we'll be back right after this. We are back live at Michigan International Speedway for the Champion Sparkplug 400 Winston Cup race. And at the moment, the scoreboard is showing the number 88 car of Morgan Shepherd in the lead and the 25 car of Ken Schrader in second, but neither has pitted.
They'll be coming in before too long, but this is the second time today that Morgan Shepherd has led in Buddy Baker's Red Baron Pizza Oldsmobile. Having a good run here today. Cale Yarborough is in the pits in the Hardee's Oldsmobile, getting left side tires. Here's a big pack of cars that Dale Earnhardt is running in, including Terry Labonte and Rusty Wallace.
When we do see Shepherd and Schrader come into the pits for their stop, I think we're going to see this group here as the front 4. Wallace, there's Earnhardt, Davey Allison, Terry Labonte, and the 12 car of Mike Alexander.
Yeah, you're right. Rusty Wallace will be the leader. He will inherit the lead unless Earnhardt gets around him here, because he only changed 2 tires. You know, Davey Allison came in and took the lead away or past Dale Earnhardt in the pits, but now Earnhardt has gone back around Davey Allison and is setting his sights on Rusty Wallace.
Car up high on the racetrack is Terry Labonte. He got the right side tires way up in the gray stuff. Really didn't lose much momentum, but it was kind of scary there for a while. Ken Schrader has come in, so the guy that was running in second position is in for some service. And let's go to Jerry Punch.
Kenny Schrader brings the car that he won with at Talladega on pit road here at Michigan. They will change left side tires in the Folger Chevrolet. Pretty good pit stop down and away. 14 seconds flat for Kenny Schrader.
Folger Chevrolet, member of the Rick Hendrick team, back out on the racetrack. We're nearing the halfway point of this 400 lap race. Morgan Shepherd now comes in. He was the leader. So now Morgan comes in and he relinquishes the lead and now goes to Rusty Wallace. Let's watch the crew go to work on this car. They're on the left side of it also with a tire change.
Cleaning the windshield and the grill. Now that fellow that's cleaning the grill, he's back across the wall. They only allow so many people over the wall, which is 6, including the gas can, the catch man they call him, that catches the overflow of gas. Good pit stop for Morgan Shepherd, and he goes back out. So he gets a lot of service in about 15 seconds.
You know, we talked about Morgan Shepherd earlier running 5 races with his own Heinz 57 Buick. I think one of the real big questions when you talk about the silly season and what's going to happen for next year, Morgan is a real question mark, and perhaps when he makes his decision, we're going to see a lot of drivers make their decisions for next year.
Yeah, he's a hot property. He's shown that he can drive for different teams. He can adjust very quickly. He knows a lot about a race car. That's one of his greatest assets, plus his ability to drive one, and that has gotten the attention of a lot of people. He has certainly come to the forefront, his name this year more than in the past.
So there is Rusty Wallace. Right behind him is Dale Earnhardt, and right behind Earnhardt is Davey Allison, and that is first, second, and third.
Of course, Earnhardt had a pretty good lead when he made his pit stop, but he took on 4 tires. The other 2 only took on 2 tires, so that put them right back together. As Gary Nelson pointed out earlier, that should put them together. Bill Elliott had made a 4-tire change on his first pit stop, but he didn't quite come out with them. Here's Earnhardt making a bid for the lead.
Pontiac, Chevy, and Ford. Earnhardt does make a bid for the lead, looking to the inside, but cannot make the pass, falling back into second spot.
You can almost see Rusty Wallace pull away right there coming off the corner when he steps on the gas, but then Earnhardt seems to get it back as they get down the straightaways. The draft helps pull Dale Earnhardt up onto the back bumper of Rusty Wallace as they go into the corner, but he sure does have some acceleration coming off.
There's one car that still has not pitted. We saw Darrell Waltrip get lapped a little while ago. Well, now he hasn't pitted, so he's back in the lead lap. As a matter of fact, he's running in the 6th position. Boy, would he like to have a caution flag right now so that he can make his pit stop under caution, but he's going to have to come in before too long. But 17 cars now in the lead lap.
Incredible mileage that Darrell Waltrip's getting on that car. He really had 2 good opportunities for cautions to save him from being a lap down.
Here is Darrell. You saw some tire smoke coming off of Earnhardt's car. Here is Waltrip. I don't think you really answered the question that I had for you last time Darrell stayed out so long. Is there a secret? Do you guys have a secret for getting good gas mileage?
Well, in Darrell's position, at this point in the season, they can afford to stick their necks out a little more than, say, a Rusty Wallace. They can go a lot leaner on the carburetor. They can turn the motor in such a way that it'll get better gas mileage, but they also have very good horsepower, so that means that they're not using it as hard. I think Darrell Waltrip's team is just more efficient overall. They're picking up all their fuel. They're confident that they can stay out there to the last drop and then come in.
But we really haven't seen anybody go over 100 miles here today, and 100 miles on these cars is not unusual on a track of this sort. Now, I think the early pit stops that we have seen has not necessarily been because they were low in gas, but they wanted to check on the tire situation.
Well, you're right, Ned. I think a lot of people were concerned with the tires. Now that they've kind of breathed a sigh of relief on the tires, I think they feel a lot better, and you might see some people stretch out their pit stop.
In one more lap, we'll be at the halfway point. While we watch Rusty Wallace, Earnhardt, and Davey Allison first, second, and third, we'll tell you that Bobby Hillin Jr. is behind the wall out of the race. We'll be right back. Once again, from the Goodyear Blimp America, we see the action on the racetrack. Rusty Wallace in that number 27 white car is the leader, and behind him the battle for second involving Earnhardt in black and Davey Allison also in white. You know, we have in-car cameras, we have helmet cams, we have bumper cams. The Goodyear Blimp utilizes the GyroCam 360. It's a gyro-stabilized camera platform developed specifically for use on the Goodyear Blimp, and what tremendous shots it does bring us, as does these in-car cameras that we have this afternoon in Cale Yarborough's car and in Rick Wilson's, as we look out the back glass as we watch the battle for second position.
That is Dale Earnhardt and Davey Allison running side by side. Rusty Wallace, of course, still the leader. And now, Bob, all 3 of the point leaders have led at least 1 lap today since Rusty Wallace. This is the first time he's led the race today. But for the fans that might be new to Winston Cup racing, each time a driver leads a Winston Cup race, they get a 5-point, not each time, but during a race, if they lead at least 1 lap, they get a 5-point bonus. So each of the drivers, Bill Elliott, Rusty Wallace, and Dale Earnhardt, who are in the thick of the battle for the Winston Cup Championship, have all gotten that 5-point bonus today.
And of course, the driver who leads the most laps gets another 5 points. Let's go to Jerry Punch, who's with Bobby Hillin Jr.
Bobby Hillin is still sitting in the car behind the wall. Bobby, a lot of smoke from the car. What happened?
I don't really know what happened. You know, we lost a lot of oil. Something's the matter with the engine. I'm not exactly sure. You know, it's been a tough week all week, but I think we had a good day going today. Just ended a little bit short. We'll have to come back to Bristol next week.
Well, Bobby's currently 10th in the Winston Cup point stand. He's going to try to stay in the car. Maybe they can fix it, but it doesn't look good. Take a look at the side of the car here. There's oil all over the side of the car. There's smoke and oil billowing from beneath this Buick on the racetrack, so it's going to be a long day and maybe a short day for Bobby Hillin.
And it looks like Dale Earnhardt has slowed on the racetrack. The car is down on the inside. You see some of the cars that he's been lapping today moving around him. So Dale Earnhardt, the problem with the Goodwrench Chevrolet.
The number 96 car of Dana Patton able to pass Dale Earnhardt, so that car is certainly not up to full song. We'll see what happens here. It is not nearly as fast as it has been all afternoon down the backstretch. Let's see if Dale Earnhardt might make a pit stop.
I would guess that he's probably lost a cylinder running on 7 cylinders at this point. We don't see any smoke coming from the car, but a lot of times, Gary, a rocker arm can break, or something go wrong in the valve train, a valve spring or something like that break, and you lose the 1 cylinder, but the car will still run.
Well, you're right. I've been watching the Dale Earnhardt pits, and they're not getting in any hurry. They're not running around like you would think they were trying to solve a problem. They're not even thinking about coming to pits. At least they're not stirring around much. Dale Earnhardt must have told him, look, I lost a cylinder.
Oh, we have Alan Kulwicki with a big puff of smoke out of that car at the end of the backstretch. Let's see if we have our first yellow. Yes, we do. The first caution flag of the afternoon comes out just beyond the halfway point. We're on lap 105, and the yellow flag is out.
Well, this could be a break for Dale Earnhardt. It will certainly keep him in the lead lap right now and give him a chance to come in and see if there is something that they can fix on that car. A tough break for Alan Kulwicki, who runs his own team, sponsored by Z-Rex and Amoco. Holds his hand out the window, and he'll head her into the garage area.
Boy, you can see that a lot of these leaders have come in the pits before they even took the yellow flag. You can do that here at Michigan if you are the leader or close to the lead. But you got to watch out. If you get in too soon, you can get lapped. Let's go to Jerry in the pit.
Well, Dale Earnhardt not really smiling right now as the crew servicing his Goodwrench Chevrolet. They will come around and put 4 tires, but it may all be for naught as Earnhardt has apparently lost a cylinder. They were told a minute ago he had lost a valve. Bill Elliott is also on pit road getting tire changes on the Coors Ford. Bill Elliott is in. Right side tires on Bill Elliott's car. And 4 tires on the Goodwrench Chevrolet for Dale Earnhardt. He is down and away. And Rusty Wallace is out, as is Bill Elliott. 4 tires for the lead car.
And the Kulwicki car, still a lot of smoke coming from it. That was a real hand grenade as it came down the backstretch. Dick Berggren is right there fighting the smoke coming from that car.
Boy, I'm going to tell you what, he came in and not only was he smoking, he was steaming and then on fire. Alan Kulwicki had to show the fire crew where the fire was. What happened, Alan?
Well, the engine just blew up and it started on fire.
Obviously, Kulwicki very disappointed here this afternoon. Wanted to do well at Michigan. Not today.
Another one of those guys in a real question mark for 1989. Where will he go? Will he stay with the same team, or will he go somewhere else? Out on the track, several cars stay there. However, a lot of them are also in the pit area. Let's go to Larry Nuber at Pit Central.
Well, Bob, we've just passed the 100-point mark in this lap, and we're going to bring you now our Napa mid-race recap. At that point, at lap 100, Rusty Wallace was the leader. And as you can see, he had only led 6 of the 100 laps, but that's just enough. You only need 1 to get those 5 bonus points. The average speed was almost 167 miles per hour because, like twice in the history of races at MIS, we had no caution flags. Now, note those pit stops on the leader, Rusty Wallace. Laps 40 and 79. The second one was just 39 laps or 78 miles. There had been no caution flags up to that point. We'd had 7 leaders who had 15 different lead changes. 42 cars had started this contest. 37 remained on track. 15 cars were on the lead lap. It was a very clean race until the attrition began to pick up, and we had this yellow flag about 105 laps in. Greg Sachs, Neil Bonnet, and Dale Jarrett, the first 3 cars out of the race. Then the King, Richard Petty, number 52, Jimmy Means, and car number 8, Bobby Hillin Jr., and add to that list the number 7 car of Alan Kulwicki. So we are past the halfway point at MIS. There'll be no race without a caution flag like happened twice here in the past at MIS.
We are back at Michigan International Speedway, where we are under caution for the first time this afternoon because of a blown engine experienced by Alan Kulwicki. 108 laps have been completed. This is our first caution of the afternoon. Well, I remember a lot of races here at Michigan, and many of them very, very exciting. But one of them that I remember most was in 1982, a tremendous battle to the finish. That's our Winston Cup replay. Winston Cup replays are brought to you by Purolator, the first name in filters. For Pure Oil now and Pure Oil later, it's Purolator. A sellout crowd in 1982 here at Michigan International saw hometown favorite Bill Elliott win the pole for the champion Sparkplug 400. But early on, a crash would involve several, including Elliott and David Pearson. But others, like Richard Petty, would spin but come through the melee with no serious damage. The severe front-end damage on the Elliott T-Bird would cost him a shot at winning. Cale Yarborough led for a while, but Bobby Allison was right there, along with crash survivor Petty. The black flag for Cale's smoking car would eliminate him. Allison pitted late and lost a lap to Petty. But then Richard came in for his final pit stop, and that set up an exciting shootout to the checkered flag.
Bobby Allison moves to the inside, and Richard Petty to the outside. I thought that Allison was slowing, but he was only getting out of the draft. Let's watch the move that Richard Petty makes off the trial, into the trial off the fourth turn. His car wiggles a little bit. It's going to be Bobby Allison winning the champion Sparkplug 400. But it's almost a side-by-side finish with Richard Petty. Another great finish in Grand National Winston Cup racing.
And just one of many wonderful moments we associate with racing and Bobby Allison, and we certainly express our sentiments also. Hurry back, Bobby. We miss you in Winston Cup competition. Back with more from the champion Sparkplug 400. And just as you rejoin us, the green flag comes out on lap number 111, and we are back to racing here at Michigan. Rusty Wallace is the leader as he heads toward turn number 2. In second position is Davey Allison. Bill Elliott is third, Sterling Marlin fourth, and the number 90 car of Benny Parsons is running in fifth position. So a good run for Benny this afternoon.
You can see that little hole in the back window there on Cale's car. That's where they stick the ratchet and an extension down through the window to make chassis adjustments during pit stop.
They're trying to pick up the average speed again. It slipped to 158 because of the caution period. But now the average will begin to move back up as Davey Allison passes Cale Yarborough on the high side of the racetrack. Being passed by several cars in turn 3.
Of course, Cale is at least one lap down in all of those cars. He's allowing them to pass on the high side so that they can race position. We have 15 cars in the lead lap at the moment. Of course, Rusty Wallace is the leader. Second is Davey Allison. Bill Elliott's third. Sterling Marlin fourth. Benny Parsons fifth. In sixth place is Morgan Shepherd. Seventh is Lake Speed. Ricky Rudd rides ninth. In eighth place, and in ninth place is Brett Bodine. 10th, Kenny Schrader. 11th, Jeff Bodine has gotten back in the lead lap. Michael Waltrip is running 12th. 13th is Rick Wilson. Kyle Petty 14th, and Dale Earnhardt is on the tail end of the lead lap, but running much slower than the other cars. He is the 15th car at the moment, and some of those cars, Bob, had been lapped. We saw them get lapped earlier, but when Earnhardt came in and took on 4 tires, made a little longer pit stop than they did, then that put them back in the lead lap. Let's go down to Jerry Punch and see what the problem is on Dale Earnhardt's car.
Established the fact that Dale Earnhardt has an engine problem. They brought the car down pit road a couple of times during that last caution. Richard Childress and the crew looked underneath the hood. Richard, what is the problem with the car?
It broke an exhaust valve.
Are you gonna be able to finish it?
Well, we hope so. You know, the valve is wedged in there somewhere. We just got hung in the draft there and probably turned a few more RPMs than we should have. But you know, we'll be all right.
Well, they're going to try to hang on and get as many of those valuable Winston Cup points as they can. Let's go up pit road to Dick Berger. Dick?
Jerry, you and I have interviewed a lot of blistered tires in 1988, but not today. As we see the tires coming off the cars, they are in such good shape here in Michigan. The teams are doing what Ricky Rudd's team has done. They're saving them. They're trying to get one set that's absolutely best for the very tail end. Now, this is a strategy that always used to be the case before the tire wars, and this is one of the first times we've seen it in 1988. Happy news on the tire front today.
So no problems like we saw last weekend at Watkins Glen. Here are the first and second runners. That's Rusty Wallace in number 27 and Davey Allison in car number 28. Just to pick up on the Dale Earnhardt story, only one time this year has that team dropped out of competition. That was because of an engine problem at Pocono.
You know, Richard Childress was talking about Dale Earnhardt breaking an exhaust valve. He's got to have been seeing problems with the valve train lately to be able to assess that problem without even getting into the engine. It's a miracle that the car keeps running with a broken exhaust valve. Something may have just broken just right, because usually it disintegrates the whole engine when the valve head falls off and the piston hits it, and then it just gets worse and worse from there. So if he finishes today with a broken valve, he'll be very lucky.
Those running in the top 6 or 7 are very close together on the racetrack. We're zooming in now on the number 9 car of Elliott. He is 3rd. 4th is Sterling Marlin in car number 44. The 88 machine of Morgan Shepherd has moved into 5th position. So here right now is 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And look who's 6th. The Bullseye Barbecue Sauce Ford. That is Benny Parsons. And Benny has been very disappointed in himself and how his car has performed in recent races, but he was really quite strong in qualifying. He was 21st, just missed the cutoff, and now is in the 6th position as we are more than halfway through this race. So Benny Parsons is really looking fine in that Junie Donlevy prepared car. Let's go to Dick Berggren.
Crew chief, I'm with his crew chief, Doug Rickard. Doug, what's going on here? You have a sore throat. Are you just cheering for Benny?
Well, I had a little problem with my vocal cords, so that's why I sound this way. We're having a real good day so far.
Yeah, they sure are having a good day. They had some problems getting the car ready, but they're running very strong, and everybody's happy to see it, Doug.
Well, you know, we ran real good here last race, and it was very disappointing that we had an oil pump problem. But we're following right along the same lines from last race. We're running in 6th position, going right as on our game plan as we planned earlier. You know, hopefully we're going to have a good turnout here today and maybe win this thing.
I guess it's okay to cheer for Benny Parsons, isn't it, guys?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Benny finish very well here this afternoon. He's holding off the challenge of Lake Speed in car number 83, who is in the 7th spot. And a few laps ago, I hope you noticed, we had a shot of the cars coming out of corner number 4, and Lake Speedway's had that car sideways, but saved it. He runs with Benny Parsons in the battle for the 6th spot. Up front, it is still Rusty Wallace and Davey Allison. Now, a little while ago, we showed the 1982 finish in which Bobby Allison beat Richard Petty, and I guess that race kind of has a special meaning for you. You remember it?
I sure do, Bob. You know, when you think back on the good old days, in my life, I can remember the good old days being the time I spent working with Bobby Allison. I was a crew chief for Bobby for that win that day, and I remember what a tough day it was, because Richard Petty, as you saw in that replay, was really gaining on us that last lap. And when it was all over, Bobby came to me and he said, "Had you worried, didn't I?" So I really do express my hopes for Bobby's 100% recovery, and I sure would like to see you come back, Bobby. We all miss you.
There are 80 laps to go in this race. We've completed 120. The average speed of the race is 158.11 miles an hour. It's Rusty Wallace and Davey Allison battling for the lead. We're glad you could join us on this beautiful Sunday afternoon for the Champion Sparkplug 400 at Michigan International Speedway. It's being brought to you by Busch Beer, the beer with a taste as smooth as its name. By the Kodak Color Watch system for great film developing. And by Purolator, the first name in filters for Pure Oil now and Pure Oil later. It's Purolator. For more than 20 years, the Goodyear blimp has been providing aerial views for television, and it is with us today. The Goodyear Blimp America from Houston, Texas. The pilot is Don McDuff. This is the 2-mile tri-oval at Michigan. On the racetrack itself, the battle continues. It is Rusty Wallace in car number 27 and Davey Allison in number 28 that are running very close together on the racetrack. And look at this statistic. A Pontiac has never won this race.
Now, this particular race,
right.
Of course, Rusty Wallace won in the spring here, and that was the first time that a Pontiac had won on this racetrack.
Well, you can't count out Bill Elliott yet. He's still in 3rd place with the leaders inside. I wonder if he's just kind of riding right now. We'll have to keep an eye on him. With Dale Earnhardt out of there, it's made everybody kind of breathe a little easier as far as the points go. Now it's going to be more between Rusty Wallace and Bill Elliott.
If we have a new winner today, it will set a record in Winston Cup competition for different leaders in a single season. One of those that hasn't won this year is the guy running second, Davey Allison, right, Larry?
Bob, that's exactly right. And on the basis of what we saw last year from Davey when he won twice, who would have thought that halfway through this season, Davey Allison, looking at you right there coming down the back chute, would not have won so far. Incidentally, non-winners in 1988 also include Benny Parsons and Morgan Shepherd, running solidly in the top 6 as we have seen. And remember, this has also been a year of multiple winners. We've had 12 different winners, and 5 of the people who have finished second place, we talked about this last week, but 5 of the second finishers of this year are also non-career winners. Alan Kawicki, Sterling Marlin, Art Martin, Michael Waltrip, and Rick Wilson. Dick Bergman is standing by with a report out on pit road.
And I'm with Robert Yates, and he's the guy that takes care of Davey Allison's car. Robert, you got some tough road ahead of you. You got to beat Allison, you got to beat Waltrip, a bunch of guys. What are you going to do? How can you get this thing in victory lane?
Well, we got one more stop to make. It'll be sort of critical on fuel. Well, we'll probably just put on 2 tires and go the rest of the way. It's working pretty good. You know, Rusty won't let him by him right now. He can't quite get the move he wants on him, but I think we might be a little bit quicker if we could get around him. We just have to see.
Are you running as fast as you can run, or is there some in reserve?
Well, you don't ever really sit back and take it easy. They have to run awful hard, but I think if we could get by Rusty, I believe we can run a little bit quicker.
Jerry Punch, there's something going on pit road near you. What's happening?
Well, Dick, a lot of strategy going on about fuel mileage. You got to remember that the Rusty Wallace won this race back in June in the same race car, and he parked it and hadn't raced it until he brought it here this week to run again. Now, back in June, he ran out of gas twice. Once he ran out of gas running 43 laps while leading, and the second time he ran out running only 39 laps. Well, they couldn't figure out why. They said, well, we've got to be getting better gas mileage than that. And Robert Yates has been working and working and working on the car, trying to decipher what it was. Finally, yesterday afternoon, they found out that the fuel cell was not picking up but about 19 gallons of gasoline. So they sent the crew to their shop back in Charlotte last night, took the fuel cell out of their short track car. They flew it up here this morning, quickly installed it in the car, and it's working right now. So a bit of last-minute strategy for Rusty Wallace may pay off here today.
It's working very well for Rusty. He has the lead, but you can see how close Davey Allison is there from overhead, the Goodyear blimp, as they race through turns 3 and 4. Just a couple of moments ago, while we were getting the reports from the pit area, here was what happened with Darrell Waltrip.
Yeah, Darrell obviously called on the radio and said he had a tire problem, an equalized tire, I suspect, because I couldn't see any flat tires. They changed right sides, and obviously the crew doesn't see anything wrong with the right side tire, so then they decided to go around and change the lefts, maybe find a problem. It's a bad break for Darrell. He's not having his best day as it is anyway.
Of course, he was already 1 lap down. Bob, Winston Cup racing has become very, very competitive, and of course it's attracting a lot of cars at each track. In fact, there were 50 here trying to make this race here at the Champion Spark Plug 400 as we watch Cale Yarborough battling with another car on the racetrack. Those both of the in-car cameras. That's Rick Wilson running side by side with Cale Yarborough. But here are some of the drivers who didn't make the field. Larry Moyer, Jay Summers, Lee Raymond, Mike Laws, David Simcoe, Ben Hess, Slick Johnson, and Ron Esau. Total 42 cars started, total 50 showed up trying to make the field.
Well, there's Cale on the high side of Rick Wilson. They are doing great battle, and now we see Cale and how it looks to him as Rick Wilson is to the inside of the racetrack, and there is Kyle Petty and Darrell Waltrip right behind Cale Yarborough. Kyle Petty in the Wood Brothers car. He will not be back with that team, of course, next year, and this is how Cale Yarborough is seeing everything, watching that rear view mirror.
Wonder if that's the same piece of chewing gum he started with. He's been working on it, hasn't he?
Boy, he is busy right now. He's in a big pack of traffic. Darrell Waltrip with 4 new tires, Kyle Petty out there, and also Rick Wilson all right around him. He's keeping that mirror, keeping a good check on the mirror.
Well, look, he takes his right arm off the steering wheel and kind of relaxes it, I guess, here in the tri-oval.
Well, it does. It's a lot of strain on it as he goes through the turns, and he does sort of relax it on the straightaway. Each time he comes off of the turn, he looks up in the rearview mirror. Of course, he's coming off of the turn now. You sort of see him leaning into the turn, and then as he starts off of the turn, he'll look up and see where the car is behind him on the side. There he looks up in his rearview mirror to see where the next car is.
The number 97 car is right behind him. That's the Rodney Combs machine.
Yeah, you know, Cale is an old veteran. He's not getting very excited. You know, you think of a race driver as being tense and just gung-ho all the time. Cale's been around so long, this is like being in your office. You know, this is his office. He's working right now, and he's just doing what he knows best.
see that there's a little vibration in there. You don't sit still in one of these things running on the straightaways here in Michigan. I guess about 180 or 185 miles an hour, and a little bit of bumping around. Of course, the suspension on these cars is much stiffer than a passenger car. You could ride around here on the passenger car and it'd feel pretty smooth to you. But you get in one of these race cars, it's a lot different.
Well, that is just amazing camera work, guys. This is live, going all over the nation. I can't believe the camera jobs you guys are doing now.
And there is a shot from Rick Wilson's car. Kyle behind, and so is Cale Yarborough.
You can see Kyle Petty pick up a little bit on the straightaway as he picks up the draft of Rick Wilson. Backing off a little bit.
That's Darrell Waltrip running the low side of the racetrack behind Rick Wilson, alongside of Cale Yarborough. And so the competition continues on the track while Rusty Wallace has the lead with Allison second. They're the top five. We'll be back in just a moment. The champion Spark Plug 400 from Michigan International Speedway is being run at a record pace. We're right now averaging 157.904. The race record is 153.860. And that pace is being set by Rusty Wallace, who won the race here earlier this year, 8 weeks ago, as a matter of fact, on June 26th. Rusty Wallace won the Miller High Life 400, so he comes here as the defending track winner, but the defending race winner a year ago today was Bill Elliott in victory lane of the champion Spark Plug 400. Davey Allison right behind him in the Haviland Ford.
Well, Rusty wants to lead as many laps as he possibly can, hoping to lead the most laps during the day, because as we said earlier, the driver who does lead the most laps gets 5 bonus Winston Cup points, and boy, that can mean a lot.
Well, Alan Kulwicki dropped out of the race a few laps ago with a big puff of smoke, even a fire, and he has worked his way over to Pit Central and Larry.
Now, Bob, Alan, you have come so close so many times this year. It looked like you were going to be in the hunt again today. What put you up?
Well, we blew an engine just going down the backstretch. I think it burned a bearing and broke a rod, and the thing started on fire, and it was really unfortunate because we were off just a little bit too loose at the start of the race, but the Xerox Amoco Ford Thunderbird did start to run real well. We got a little bit behind, but we settled in about the same pace as the leaders did, and all we needed was a caution to catch up, and I think we would have been in good shape, but unfortunately it was a short day for us.
Well, Alan, to be journalistic about this, you know your name keeps popping up. It's that time of the year. Can you reveal to us, not necessarily where you might go, but what are your thoughts? Do you think you might consider going to another team this year? You really haven't in past seasons.
Well, I have to consider it at this point because the offers keep getting better and better, but I'm not saying that I'm going to drive for another team. You know, it's just something that I'm considering at this point.
Alan, if you were to win a race here in the next 10 races, would that change your mind on whether or not you would move to another team?
Well, you know, you have to look at things not just in the short term, but try to look at the long-term aspect of it. And just because we win one race doesn't mean I should carry on with my own team any more than the fact that we blew an engine today means I should give it up. You've got to consider everything, but you know, that certainly would be a morale booster, and we've been close a number of times. The guys in the crew have worked real hard, and you know, I feel if we did win a race, we'd deserve it. It'd be a real morale booster, and you know, that would have an effect on the decision, but that wouldn't be the entire determining factor.
Alan, this is Ned Garrett in the booth. The fans on the screen saw fire come from your car when the engine did blow, and they wonder what causes it to catch fire.
Well, usually what happens in a case like that is if it broke a rod and the rod goes out the side of the oil pan, all the oil gets on the headers, that starts on fire. When that's burning, that in turn started the paint on the floorboards on fire also. When I stopped the car, there was just a little fire inside the car. Nothing real serious. I just set off the onboard fire extinguisher. I couldn't actually see the flames inside the car when I was trying to stop it, but I started to feel the heat.
Alan, we've seen these two guys, Rusty Wallace and Davey Allison, running about like this for the last 20 laps or so, really, since the last series of pit stops. Were you able to run with either of these guys enough to determine who you think is the stronger out here?
I'd say it's really too early in the race to tell. It's really going to come down to who has the best set of tires at the end of the race, but you know, I think Rusty'd have to be the favorite on this track at this point.
And speaking of tires, Alan, from all indications from Dick Bergman and Jerry Punch, there really aren't any nearly as badly as there was last weekend at Watkins Glen.
No, they were holding up real well. We ran on Goodyears the whole time that we ran, and did not have any tire trouble. The tires seemed to be pretty consistent. As I said, our car was off just a little bit at the start, but we got it adjusted. I was very happy with the car and with the tires, and I don't think you're going to see any real tire problems today.
Well, Alan, what do you think about the track conditions? This is Gary Nelson in the booth. It looked to me like the times are dropping off just a little bit. Do you think it's coming from the heat and guys taking it easy, or do you think they're running pretty hard right now?
Well, the hotter it gets, the slipperier it gets, and when the tires get hot, the cars tend to drift up the track. If you'll notice, you know, when they've got new tires on after a pit stop, they'll run real low, and gradually they'll just start drifting up higher and higher the longer they run. But the times aren't falling off real bad from what we had seen. You know, we were able to stay in the 42s most of the time that we were running, and I think it's an ideal day for the race. The tires and the track both seem to be holding up real well.
All right, Alice, nice to have you with us. Stand by there in pit central, if you will, and we'll get some comments with you for the next several laps. As we watch the action on the racetrack, it is still Rusty Wallace and Davey Allison, Bill Elliott third, then the 88 car of Morgan Shepherd and Sterling Marlin runs in fifth position with 143 laps gone. Bob Jenkins, Ned Jarrett, Gary Nelson, Larry Newber, Dick Berggren, and Jerry Punch back at Michigan International Speedway for the Champion Spark Plug 400. 145 laps have been completed. It is this battle on the racetrack that we continue to watch. Rusty Wallace in the lead and Davey Allison running in second position. They've been running that way on the racetrack for the last several laps. Hanging back in third, about 2 seconds behind, is Bill Elliott. Well, this race has always shown us some very good competition, and we asked Rusty Wallace, can close racing here be a little bit hazardous at times?
It gets a little touchy from the driver's standpoint running that close, but I guess as wide as I ever run here was maybe 3 or 4, but you can race 3 abreast of this racetrack, and that happens all the time down the front straightaway when you're trying to make a pass. So, you know, it gets you on your toes, and you've got to get everything lined up when it comes time to get to the corner.
So those are the comments from Rusty Wallace as he's explaining how 3 and 4 abreast racing is commonplace here at Michigan. And in the pit area is the number 88 car driven by Morgan Shepherd. He was 4th when he made this stop.
And I don't believe that he'll be able to go the rest of the distance. That was a good pit stop to change right side tires and fill it up with gas. But he's got about 106 miles to go, so I don't believe he can go the rest of the way.
Well, let's go down to the pits. Barry Dotson and the Rusty Wallace team is with Jerry Punch.
A possible problem brewing for Barry Dotson and the Kodiak team. Barry, what's the problem with the car? Something you're concerned about?
We got a header pipe broken. We got a pit right now. I told him to come in this lap. So it's hurting the mileage. We can't gamble. We got to go as far as we can and not take any chances.
Well, Barry Dotson, what he was trying to tell us was they have a header pipe broken, and that means they will not get the gas mileage they thought they would get out of the car. And remember, they got burned twice here in June, but they still won the race. They don't want to get burned anymore. Now, they pitted on lap number 106, exactly 41 laps to go, so they're only going to run about 82 miles.
Here he comes, Jerry.
Here comes Rusty Wallace down pit road. He brings the Kodiak Pontiac on pit road, and Harold Elliott and the rest of the Kodiak team standing by. They are not seeing any tire wear. They're feeling awfully good about the performance of the Goodyear tires. It is the gas they're concerned about. Here is Rusty Wallace coming to a halt. They go to the right side of the car. Jimmy May car, right front tire. John Dotson, right rear. Harry Dotson, the crew chief on the jack. They will clean the windshield. 1 can of fuel is in. Norman Kosamitsu puts the second can of fuel in. Great pit stop for Rusty Wallace. This car is down and away. Let's go to Larry Newber. Larry?
Jerry, I think their problems are even a little more deep than what you and Jerry may have discussed. By our calculations down here at Pit Central, we figured that Rusty Wallace would have to go to lap 160 in order to make just one final stop here for fuel. And obviously, he has not made it. The furthest that he has gone all day, as you just pointed out, is 41 laps. We've been tracking this apparent problem, this bad fuel mileage since the beginning of the race, and it's been consistent throughout all 4 of his pit stops. Rusty Wallace just can't go more than 40 laps comfortably. Most of the people should stop about lap 156, and that should be enough for everybody. Ken Schrader, by the way, and Ricky Rudd continue to get the best gas mileage. How about it, Dick Berg, when you're out there on pit road? What do you see in terms of this gas mileage, tire wear, and what do you see for the rest of the race?
Well, I'll tell you what the teams are telling me, Larry, and I've just talked to Morgan Shepherd's crew, and they say he came in early because they were concerned about a right rear tire. But they also say he can make it all the way. Right now, I'm standing in Davey Allison's pit, and I've just asked Robert Yates, what's the story here? Well, they've changed tires here as to what they're going to put on the cars a couple of times. In fact, they're changing them again. But Robert says next pit stop, if it stays green, will be the last. They can go all the way from this point. Tire wear looks good. It's a shootout. Boy, it's up to the drivers now, Larry.
Well, Davey Allison has the lead, and I'd like your gentleman's opinion on whether Rusty Wallace can go 52 laps the rest of the way without a fuel stop.
No, I don't think he can, Bob. He normally doesn't get that kind of fuel mileage, and I just don't believe that he can go that far. I think Davey Allison, though, once he makes his pit stop, that he will be able to go the rest of the way.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ned. Rusty Wallace has been stopping around 39 laps. Earlier, 2 times this race, he stopped at 39 laps. 52 laps is asking an awful lot of that car. And you heard Barry Dodson talking about a header pipe being broken and thinking that hurts his mileage. I'm sure it's a big distraction, and it does hurt the mileage, but Rusty's car still seems to be the strongest on the track.
The number 15 car, the Brett Bodine machine, Bud Moore's car is in for a pit stop. He was running in 4th position when he came in for a stop. So it's a good afternoon for Brett Bodine. A quick pit stop, and he goes back into competition. 151 laps are completed. We've got 49 to go on this Sunday afternoon from Michigan International Speedway. We're glad you could join us for the Champion Spark Plug 400.
Your leader is on his way into the pits right now. Davey Allison storms down pit road. Seconds ago, Robert Yates, like a coach and a team, went to every crew member and told them what they were going to do, and one by one they nodded affirmatively. Davey Allison says, I don't need anything to drink. It's going to be a right side tire change. Fuel, they say they can go all the way from here. They've adjusted the wedge. The car has a little bit of a push. That should solve the push, along with the change of tires in the rear of the car. They're waiting to get every drop in. They've got it, and there goes Davey in 69. Good stop.
Davey Allison should be able to go the rest of the way, as Benny Parsons, who is now in the top 5, has also made a pit stop, and he goes back into competition. Meanwhile, the new leader of the race is Lake Speed in car number 83. And it appears as if he is coming in. Indeed, he is. Lake Speed drops off the banking in turn number 4 and heads for his pit area.
Also going out of the pits right now is Kyle Petty, Cale Yarborough, and Rick Wilson.
Let's watch the work on Lake Speed's car. He's been very competitive all afternoon, has never really been in a position to battle for the lead, but he has been very consistent in the top 6 or 7.
You heard Dick talking about how Robert Yates, the crew chief on Davey Allison's team, went to each crew member and talked to him about what they were going to do on their pit stop. That's an interesting thing with the radios nowadays. All crew members having radios, they must have been having some kind of communications problem.
Dale Earnhardt is also in the pit area. Now, Dale has lost a lap. He is no longer on the lead lap with everyone else, and he is in for another time. There, meanwhile, is the race for the front position, as Rusty Wallace and Bill Elliott now are hooked up in a first and second duel. And there is Earnhardt going back out on the racetrack.
You can tell that car is a little sick as he goes out of the pits running on 7 cylinders.
So Dale Earnhardt no longer a threat to win this race, but we have Pontiac against Ford going at it here with Wallace and Bill Elliott.
Well, that was the scenario here back in June in the 400-miler, and Wallace managed to hold Elliott off and won the race.
Dale Earnhardt just went down 2 laps now, so he's nursing that car home. He's not going to have a real bad finish if it keeps running.
Earnhardt, of course, is 3rd in the points battle, so he too.
We think that Wallace is going to have to make another pit stop. Elliott perhaps will not. Right now, there are 14 cars in the lead lap. Of course, Rusty Wallace the leader, Bill Elliott 2nd, Davey Allison now 3rd, Brett Bodine in 4th place, Benny Parsons 5th, Sterling Marlin 6th, Morgan Shepherd 7th, Lake Speed 8th, 9th is Jeff Bodine, 10th is the car number 25 of Kenny Schrader, Ricky Rudd is 11th, Michael Waltrip 12th, Rick Wilson is 13th, and Kyle Petty in 14th. All of those cars on the lead lap.
That's 6th, 7th, and 8th there. Morgan Shepherd. Right behind him is Sterling Marlin and Lake Speed. Speed is all over the racetrack. He's running a lower line sometimes, and we saw him come off of turn number 4, and he was way up in the upper groove. Alan, what's going on with that car, do you think?
Well, you know, the handling on your car changes a lot when you're behind other cars or another car's behind you. Right now, he looks like he's running lower through the corners than the other cars, and looks like he's sticking pretty well. I did notice before when Rusty Wallace and Bill Elliott were running together that with Elliott behind him, Rusty's car did start to look loose. It did look like the back end of the car was starting to wiggle a little bit, and Bill looked like he was just riding. He looked pretty strong at this point.
Yeah, I saw that too up in turn number 1 a few laps ago. Rusty got way up high and may have gotten those right side tires into the gray stuff.
At this point, I feel that if I had to bet, I think there might be another caution flag in this race, and the whole complexion of it can change. But if it stays like it is, Rusty's going to have a tough time with the tires he's got on the car now.
And of course, he'll have a tough time with fuel as well, because he did stop before the other leaders and had more than 100 miles to go when he made his pit stop.
Now Lake Speed pulling alongside of Morgan Shepherd as they head for the tri-oval and cross the stripe, and they cross the stripe pretty much side by side. Lake still trying to take over that spot from Morgan Shepherd.
While they're racing side by side, Sterling Marlin, who passed Morgan a few laps ago, has been able to move away a little bit.
Meanwhile, up front, it is still Rusty Wallace as we watch down the backstretch. Here is Wallace and Bill Elliott. So, Alan, you kind of think that Bill is just wanting to be there at the moment.
Well, at this point, it looks that way. You know, it looks like Rusty's holding him off, but he's having to work a little bit to do it right now. He looks a little bit loose. It looks like Bill's just riding.
And I tell you, both of them better look in their rearview mirror, because Davey Allison is coming back there. He's only 1 second behind him, and when he came out of the pits, he was farther behind, and he is picking up on both of them.
So what is now a 2-car battle will soon become a 3-car race, as Davey Allison is indeed catching up to first and second Wallace and Bill Elliott. We'll be back in just a moment. We are back at the Champion Spark Plug 400, and here's what we warned you of. And now a 3-car battle for the lead, as Davey Allison in the number 28 car to the inside of the racetrack has made it a 3-car battle with Bill Elliott in number 9 and Rusty Wallace in car number 27. And Davey has really made up some time in the last few laps.
Well, he's made up a lot of time, Bob, and did it in a hurry, but catching him was very easy for him, but passing now is a different situation. He's tried Elliott several times, but simply hasn't been able to move around him.
That's the shot from the Goodyear Blimp America as the cars head into turns 3 and 4. All right, let's go to Pit Central for a summary of the most recent pit stops.
Well, Bob, this is the 4th pit stop summary. As you watch the leaders up in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you can see 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. As they came into the pits, they came out still in the top 6. Now, the interesting things about this pit stop, notice Morgan Shepherd pitting at lap 146, and Rusty Wallace, as we commented earlier, pitting at lap 148. Before lap 150, that means they have to go more than 100 miles, and we don't think that anybody has the ability to go 100 or more miles on a load of fuel. So that means the rest of the people on the screen should be in it for the win. Davey Allison has really moved up the last couple laps, and Dick Berggren is standing by.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Larry, Davey Allison is definitely flying, but for those who just tuned in, you might be wondering what happened to one of the pre-race favorites if he's not running in the front. Dale Earnhardt earlier today dropped a valve, but he's staying in there, and he's staying in there for the points, the all-important points that count for the championship, whether you're running on 7 cylinders or not. And another guy who's hanging in there is Kenny Schrader, and I just asked his crew chief, Harry Hyde, why isn't Schrader running faster? And Harry looked me square in the eye, and he said, boy, I wish I knew. I really wish I knew. They just don't know what the problem is. Jerry Punch?
Well, I'm pretty confident here in the Sterling Marlin pits. You know, they had some bad news this week. They lost their sponsor, Piedmont Airlines, will not renew next year. But the good news is they have no panty lines at all here in the Oldsmobile pits. Their underalls are fitting snugly. But more importantly and more seriously, they can make it the rest of the way on fuel. They have to go 46 laps, and they can make it. Now, how about Bill Elliott? Can he make it? Well, let's go ask Ernie. We'll find out. Come along. Let's talk to Ernie Elliott and see where they can make it. Ernie, you got to go 47 laps. Can you go the rest of the way on fuel?
Well, we're going to give it a shot. You know, we've run 47 laps the last stop, so I think we can do it.
Well, a man who has been behind the wall for the last 3 consecutive Champion Spark Plug 400 victories is still here and hoping for a 4th one today.
Davey Allison alongside of Bill Elliott once again. Allison has to get off the accelerator and put on the brakes to avoid the Darrell Waltrip car, who is in his lane. And so it remains Wallace, Bill Elliott, and Davey Allison.
And closing in fourth place is Brett Bodine. He is really mowing down the leaders. After his last pit stop, he came out about 4 or 5 seconds behind them. Right now, he's only about 1.5 seconds.
Brett Bodine and also the 90 car of Benny Parsons. You know, our sentimental favorite up here in the booth. Looks like he's doing real well. Benny's in 5th place right behind the car you see there of Brett Bodine. So those 2 Fords are really making their move right now at the end of the race, towards the end of the race.
You know, we talked about the Ford cars a little bit earlier, and whether they still have an advantage on this racetrack. How about 4 of the first 5 drivers running in Ford cars?
Yeah, that says a lot for Rusty Wallace because he is leading.
So still, Davey Allison continues to work on Bill Elliott, trying to grab that 2nd spot. He goes low on the racetrack in the tri-oval. He has done this many laps before, but still just is not able to go into 2nd place. Well, Davey Allison has not won a race this year, as we pointed out earlier. So how would you characterize your season so far, Davey?
Well, we haven't had the best season, but we really haven't had the worst either. We're still in the top 5 in the money earnings for the season, and we've fallen out of a bunch of races. So we know that if we'd have just had a little bit of good luck at some places, we'd be way up there. And we're really not that far back in the point standings either. We're still in 14th place, and we have a real good shot at getting back into the top 10 and a decent shot at getting back into the top 5 if we just get our act back together and go on and have some good finishes for the rest of the season.
The yellow flag is out for the 2nd time this afternoon. Yellow on the racetrack. Any idea why?
Debris on the backstretch, I believe, is the situation.
The old Frenchman on the backstretch, debris.
Well, it'll, of course, be a break for those who needed another pit stop, and Rusty Wallace was among them.
Oh,
Sure
definitely
was.
Rusty, yes.
So the pace is reduced on the backstretch, and we will now see some pit stops being made as everybody comes in and gets enough fuel that will carry them to the finish of the race. And this 2nd caution period of the afternoon comes on lap number 171. So 29 more laps to go, and this race will be over. There once again is the shot from the Goodyear Blimp America.
See,
as the field is under caution. Here they come.
Everybody coming down pit road. All of them will take on 4 tires and fill the tank up with fuel. Make any adjustments that they might need to make. And one guy who didn't want to see this caution was Brett Bodine, because he had
we have a collision on
He
pit
just
road.
got spun out. Brett Bodine was hit from the rear as he came into the pits, spun all the way around his tire.
And a big fire
in the Sterling Marlin pits, and everybody has to scramble away from there. Apparently, the firemen are there to put the fire out, but apparently something happened. It looked like there was some gas that spilled from the wall. Let's go to Jerry Punch at the pits.
They were fueling the Sterling Marlin car, and fire came out of the side of the fuel bin and fire all up and down pit road. The firemen running out here and trying to put the car out, as was Billy Hagan, the car owner. They have finally gotten the fire out. We were standing right beside the end of the car here when that fire erupted. Our cameraman dove out of the way, and the camera took quite a beating here, as I think we got some flame on the side of some cables, but we're okay. But the Sterling Marlin crew now goes back to work and tries to put back together what was a top-running Piedmont Airlines under all those mobiles.
Well, you can see the car number 15 of Brett Bodine as they serviced that car. That's where he was knocked. And there's Benny Parsons going out of the pits. He got hit apparently because there's smoke coming from Benny Parsons' car. And Brett Bodine has to back his car out and get it headed out down pit road.
Wow, that was, I hope everybody's okay.
Well, Sterling Marlin now, apparently something wrong. He went out of his pits and then pulled to the side in another pit a little further down pit road. I believe he just pulled over the NASCAR official, my okay to go, because he takes off now.
I did see some flame on a suit by one of the crew members, and I hope it stayed on the suit and was extinguished before it burned anyone. But there you can see Benny Parsons has some damage on the left front of that front of the car.
Looks like the right front tire might be flat because the right front of the car is way down on the ground almost. So Benny will be coming back into the pits. Tough break for him. He was another one that didn't want to see this caution because he was certainly in a good position there in 5th place and gaining on the leaders as well.
Let's take a look at what happened as we are looking down pit road to try to determine exactly what happened.
Okay, everybody was coming into the pits, and many of them trying to come into the same spot, and I believe it was Eddie Beersball in car number 23 that hit the car number 15 of Brett Bodine and spun him around. Now, that had nothing to do, I don't think, with the fire, which was right behind Brett Bodine. Sterling Marlin and Brett Bodine pitting beside of each other. It was just a coincidence that they were side by side. And Benny Parsons back in the pits now, and indeed his right front tire was flat. Evidently that car tire was cut as he went out of the pits. Fortunately, it's under caution and he'll be able to put it back on, but there are 15, 14 cars still in the lead lap, and he's going to be at the rear of the lead lap as opposed to the 5th place that he was in before the caution came out.
Benny had just moved into the top 5 when this yellow came out and the sequence of events on pit road occurred. There is the scene of the fire in the Sterling Marlin pit. We'll be right back. Quick Facts are brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
This is the famous or infamous, depending upon which side of the fence you happen to be on for a given weekend, NASCAR tire hoop. They began using it this year to measure a tire width when they discovered that they were going to be in a tire war. The rule book says the tires must be 13.2 inches wide with a tolerance of 0.15 of an inch, or a maximum of 13.35 inches, which happens to be the width of the tire hoop. Here's how it works. And if it slips over the tire, that tire is approved for competition for that weekend. Both manufacturers have been disapproved once this year. The most recent, last week, Watkins Glen Hoosier, and at Pocono, NASCAR said no to Goodyear. Only tire width is important. At least up to this point, tire height, which can vary by as much as 1.5 inches, is not important.
Well, as we go back to the green flag racing, I never did figure out how come they call that thing a hoop. It doesn't look like a hula hoop to me. It looks more like a rectangle, but they're not giving us no tolerance rules of NASCAR this year.
Bill Elliott made a couple of pit stops during this caution period and restarts from well back in the pack, and we'll see his progress now to the front as Brett Bodine and Sterling Marlin are right there with him.
A lot of cars running very, very close together, including those up front. Rusty Wallace still leading, but Davey Allison is right on his back.
Well, we sure hope nobody was seriously injured in that pit fire, but I got to commend the fire department down there. They did a heck of a job of extinguishing that fire. There were so many gas cans around there, it could have really been something.
You know, there was a huge IndyCar fire here several years ago, and I think that's one of the things that has caused such good reaction here in 1988. The fire department is top-notch, and they know how to deal with a serious situation, and that could have been a very serious situation. Well, there is Terry Labonte running in the Budweiser machine. Jeff Bodine to his outside. Ricky Rudd is there. There's Ken Schrader, Morgan Shepherd. Lake Speed is in this group, as is Kyle Petty.
Jeff Bodine is running in the 3rd position. Ricky Rudd is 4th, and in 5th is Kenny Schrader in the car number 25. And look at Ricky Rudd make a move on the inside of Jeff Bodine and drove right past him.
Jeff got a little sideways there in the second corner.
Boy, he did. He had his hands full getting into that turn. The car slid up sideways. It looked like it started to push, and then as he turned the wheel, it turned sideways on him. He lost the position.
3 abreast, they tried to make it going into that turn, but Lake Speed thought better of it. I better not do that. Boy, Jeff's car is pushing out, and we saw it earlier in the race, and that's really costing him a lot of position.
Michael Waltrip is on the high side of the racetrack, and a battle for the lead. Davey Allison grabs the top spot from Rusty Wallace as Bill Elliott continues to move up through the field. Elliott now on the low side of the racetrack. This is good racing here, the best we've seen all day.
Boy, I bet Bill Elliott's sorry he had to make that second pit stop. I don't know what the reason was. They changed all 4 tires. The fire in the pits was right in front of him. It might have caused one of the crew members to leave a lug nut loose or something, and Bill Elliott had to come back in the pits and restart in the back. You know, he was running right here with Davey Allison and Rusty Wallace.
So there is Davey Allison, who now has the lead, and here's how he got it last lap.
Well, they just pulled down on the inside, coming off the turn, got a nose up alongside Rusty Wallace, coming down the front straightaway. Well, it's not really a straightaway, but the dry oval here, and drove into the first turn in the lead.
Now we'll see if Davey can take off and leave Rusty Wallace in his wake. He has lengthened the lead just a little bit in the last lap. Benny Parsons is back on pit road as we watch the action on the backstretch.
Tough break for Benny to have to come in. Here's Davey Allison leading the race. He went from 5 cars within a couple seconds just before the caution to now just 2 cars racing for the lead and the others way back.
He's turned the wick up on it now, Gary. He's letting it all hang out. If he had anything left, of course, now's the time to do it, and he's turned her loose.
Meanwhile, here is Bill Elliott still threading his way through the traffic. That is Michael Waltrip right ahead of Bill Elliott in the yellow and green car number 30, and Brett Bodine is right ahead of him. Let's go to the pit area.
Well, we mentioned why Bill Elliott had to come back in. You know, he was in the pits changing 4 tires when the fire broke out about 5 or 6 feet from the front of his car where Sterling Marlin was pitting. The jack man on the Elliott car dropped the jack, and Elliott took off, and all the lug nuts were not tied, as Gary had just speculated very correctly. So they had to bring him back in to tighten the lug nuts, and thus he had to start all the way in the rear of the field.
Well, Bill is not really moving up as quickly as I'm sure he wishes he could. He's got a lot of traffic in front of him, although Brett Bodine, though, is right ahead of him. 3 abreast racing. No, make that 4 abreast racing in the tri-oval. That's Dale Earnhardt way low on the racetrack.
Well, it was good of Earnhardt to see that racing come up, and he pulled completely out of the way, let him go at it 3 abreast.
Michael Waltrip still running right beside Bill Elliott, and Larry Nuber is watching from pit central.
Well, Bob, we've been talking about the ride of Bill Elliott from the back to the front, and Ned and Jerry and Gary, I would suggest, and Dick, I would suggest that this is Brett Bodine's single best performance of this year. He may not be 4th on the track right now, which is his best finish of his career, which happened this year, but Brett Bodine is one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. He has been for the last 10 laps, and Bill Elliott cannot get by him, even in heavy traffic.
He's having a tremendous run, doing a great job of driving that car. His 4th place finish came in the Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte back in May when he came into the pits sideways and hit his car owner, Bud Moore. Bud was out for a few weeks with a broken leg, but he's here today and ready to play golf again, he says, very shortly. And unfortunately, Brett got spun into the pits there today, not his own making, and trying to take over the 5th position there right now from Kenny Schrader.
And this is only Brett Bodine's 34th career Winston Cup start, and that is he on the bottom side of the racetrack in the red, white, and blue car number 15. Brett Bodine from Chemung, New York.
Boy, what a turn of events we've had just recently. If you remember back, we had 4 Fords and Rusty Wallace leading the race. Just after the caution now, Brett Bodine had a problem, Bill Elliott had a problem, Benny Parsons had a problem, now he's a lap down. And the benefactors of that has been Morgan Shepherd, Ricky Rudd, and Lake Speed.
I mentioned that was 5th place they were battling for. Actually, Kenny Schrader in the 25 car is running 6th to Bill Elliott now, moved around Brett Bodine and is trying to take over that 6th position. Lake Speed is running in the 5th position. Ricky Rudd is 4th, and Morgan Shepherd running in the 3rd position.
So there is Bill Elliott passing another car on the low side of the racetrack as we go back up front and see how our leader is doing. And our leader is Davey Allison, and look at the interval that he has put between himself and Rusty Wallace. So Davey Allison appears to be on his way to a victory here this afternoon, his first of 1988, and I think this is a good example of the parity, the different makes that we are seeing, all the different makes that we are seeing run in the top 10 here this afternoon. Well, NASCAR is continually seeking to make racing a little bit safer, and a new innovation has even arisen since the Daytona 500. Here is a track fact. Track facts are brought to you by the Robert Bosch Corporation, makers of Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug.
This innovation, known by various terms, but most commonly as a roof rail, is a result of NASCAR's discovery over the past year. They have to slow these cars down and, more importantly, keep them from flying. It began last year at Talladega when Bobby Allison's car got sideways and off it flew. Ken Schrader's car at Daytona was more proof that this was a problem. So at the beginning of the 1988 season at Daytona, NASCAR mandated that on the right side, the window had to be enclosed with plexiglass, keeping the air from getting inside the cockpit. Further, skirts at ground level were also required to keep the air from getting underneath the race car. Well, the crash of this very machine, Richard Petty, proved that that was simply not enough. So at all super speedways, they came up with this roof rail idea. And for the first time this weekend here at Michigan, the roof rails are now required at all tracks 1 mile in length. All super speedways on the schedule, not just the 200-mile-an-hour speedways.
16 laps to go to the checkered flag. Can Davey Allison hang on for his first win of '88? Back at Michigan International Speedway, we'd like to remind you at 5:30 this afternoon Eastern Time, the 1988 International Bicycling Championship from Boulder, Colorado, live at 5:30 Eastern Time. And then tonight at 8 o'clock, we continue our preseason action. NFL game between the Minnesota Vikings and Phoenix Cardinals. That's at 8 o'clock tonight here on ESPN. There are 10 laps to go in this race, and Davey Allison from Hueytown, Alabama, is in the lead and looking for his first win of 1988. If he will win, we will have our 13th different winner for 1988. That will tie a modern era record, which was set in 1986. And here's the average speed of the race. It's still at a record pace, 155.6, the record 153.8. We have only had 2 caution periods interrupt our flow this afternoon.
Well, Davey Allison has pulled away from Rusty Wallace by a good margin, but Morgan Shepherd, who is running third, is gaining on Rusty Wallace. You can see the 2 cars there as they come into focus off of turn 4. A moment ago, he was about a second and a half behind. Now he is only 0.8 of a second behind, so Morgan Shepherd is definitely gaining. Bill Elliott has moved through that pack of traffic that he was in. He has moved up into the 4th position. He's also gaining on Rusty Wallace and Morgan Shepherd. Does he have time to catch him, though?
We would suggest that you not go to your refrigerator right now for your favorite beverage or something to eat. Remember last week we had Darrell Waltrip in command with 4 laps to go and he dropped out. It's not over until the checkered flag drops, although Davey Allison is looking very good.
The car has run well for him all day, and he's done a great job of driving the car. There are 13 cars in the lead lap now. Benny Parsons, after making an unscheduled pit stop, has dropped off the lead lap.
And you can see the interval now between first and third. It's only 3.9 seconds. Now, Bill Elliott in car number 9 is still in this race, very much so. There he is, not too far behind Morgan Shepherd, and Bill is 4th.
He is definitely gaining on the 2nd and 3rd place cars. It took him a while to get through the traffic after coming from the rear. He was about, 13th to 14th when the green flag flew again, but he has come through that traffic and moved away from the pack behind him and gaining on the front runners.
Yeah, what a shame for Bill Elliott. You know, he just kind of took off at the beginning of the race, led, showed his strength, then he just kind of followed in second no matter who the leader was. Bill Elliott always seemed to be second or third all along. Then right at the end, that pit fire set Bill Elliott back, and now he's going to have a tough time making up the ground.
Well, the interval increased there just a little bit from lap to lap, 3.8 to 4.4, so Allison is indeed pulling away from 2nd and 3rd.
Well, Morgan Shepherd lost a little bit of time there when he got behind Dale Earnhardt going into that turn. Rusty Wallace got by Earnhardt before they got into the turn, and that let him make the radius that he wanted to around the turn, so it cost Shepherd a little bit of time.
If we were to finish as they are running right now, Ned, this points battle would still be just almost as hot as it was going in. Wallace would get credit for 2nd place points, and Bill Elliott would get credit for 4th place points.
Which is only 10 points difference, and I don't know, I haven't seen yet, but I believe Rusty Wallace might have been the lap leader, which would give him 5 points, so really he would gain 5 points on Bill Elliott. No, that would make him gain the 15 points on Bill Elliott.
So he has less than 6 laps to go now. 194 have been completed for Davey Allison. Let's hope that Father Bobby is watching. I'm sure he is, and watching his son on his way to victory.
Well, he has certainly driven a great race here today. The car has worked well for him, and he has done what he's had to do to keep it in the thick of the battle all day, and then when the time came, he put the pedal to the metal, as they say, and moved away.
Allison headed for turn number 1, less than 5 laps to go now.
Really something for Davey Allison. You know, it's been a long time since he's been to the winner's circle, and he hasn't been to the winner's circle very often in his young career, but he's got to be breathing pretty nervous right now. He's got to be thinking, what can happen? Something's got to happen. I've had all these problems all year this year since my last win. Think it'll hold out? I don't know.
Well, in our opinion, the Goodyear Eagle driver of the race is Brett Bodine. We will be giving $1,000 to the Grand National Racing Wives Association, Goodyear that is, in Brett Bodine's name. He's not going to win this race, but we feel that Brett Bodine is the winner of this race. I think it's an excellent choice. Brett Bodine, a very, very strong race all afternoon.
He has run a very, very good race. In fact, he had a shot at winning this thing before that last caution came out. And it looks like the car number 25 of Kenny Schrader has definitely slowed, and Morgan Shepherd moving around Rusty Wallace for the number 2 position.
So Morgan Shepherd goes to second and Rusty Wallace goes to third. Now we have Wallace in third and Bill Elliott in fourth. So even closer points.
He just lost 5 points right there. And it looks like there's some smoke coming from Rusty Wallace's car.
Quite a bit of smoke in the turns. You know, they were talking about a broken header. He doesn't look like he's slowed down much. He has smoking on the straightaway also. Rusty Wallace definitely has a problem. I bet he's really hanging on. 3 laps to go.
And Bill Elliott is catching him. There are 3 laps to go. Oh, and we have a car really letting go down to the first turn. Ricky Rudd with a big puff of smoke coming from that car. Is this race going to end under caution?
No caution yet. NASCAR's looking at the track, but no caution yet.
Rudd was running in the 6th position before he had his problem going into turn. What a tough break for him.
Still no caution displayed. Here comes Davey Allison out of corner number 4, completing lap number 198. There you can see the tremendous interval between first and second, but look at the battle for third as Bill Elliott is now right on the back bumper of Rusty Wallace.
Now, if he can pass him, that would be another 5 points, and it would put him exactly the same position as he came into this race.
Unbelievable, the points battle. And by the way, we have 8 of the next 10 races, meaning ESPN and our telecast will televise 8 of the last 10 races in the Winston Cup circuit. Now look at Rusty Wallace. He is challenging Morgan Shepherd for second, and Rusty is about to take it away from him.
Well, whatever that smoke is not bothering the speed of that car, but was it a bad move? Because here comes Bill Elliott up on the outside. He might be able to push Shepherd away, and the draft worked together for Shepherd and Elliott.
3 cars locked in a duel for second. The white flag has already been displayed to Davey Allison. We'll watch this great battle for second, though. Morgan Shepherd has second in the 88 car at the moment, and Rusty Wallace has third. Elliott is in fourth. Davey Allison now comes out of corner number 2 and heads down the backstretch for the final time, and the crew is hoping and praying that it'll stay together for him.
And Morgan Shepherd just went high coming off of turn 2. Both Rusty Wallace and Bill Elliott moved around him. There they are, the 3 cars, second, third, and fourth.
And Phil Parsons apparently has blown a motor. He's down in turn number 1 with a lot of smoke coming from that car. Here we go. Here's the shootout. Remember, Davey Allison is the leader. Here he comes. Davey Allison wins the Champion Spark Plug 400. Now let's go back and watch this battle for second. Rusty Wallace leads him down. It's Wallace, Elliott, and Morgan Shepherd finishing second, third, and fourth, and fifth right there also was Lake Speed.
Lake Speed had caught up to that crew as they were battling up there, and there you see the happy crew of Davey Allison.
Good shot of Robert Yates, the crew chief there. I know he feels good after this win. He's had a tough time with engines the last few races, and now he's pulled one off.
This is Davey Allison's 3rd career win. He won twice in his rookie season last year, and now brings home a victory in 1988 for the Haviland Ford. The 3rd win comes in his 49th career Winston Cup start. So the Champion Spark Plug 400 has concluded here at Michigan International Speedway with Davey Allison the winner, and it's been brought to you by Pontiac Grand Prix, the 1988 Motor Trend Car of the Year. By Pronto, featuring quality auto parts at lower prices. And by Quaker State Motor Oil, the big Q stands for quality, always has and always will. We'll make our way toward Victory Lane and join Davey Allison there for our winner interview right after this. We'll be back in a moment at the Champion Spark Plug 400. Our Winner's Circle interview is being brought to you by Goodyear Eagle Tires. Goodyear, because there really is a difference. And Father Bobby, you can be very proud of son Davey. Let's go to Victory Lane and Dick Berggren.
Well, I'm going to try to catch Davey Allison. He just grabbed Robert Yates by the shirt. He wanted him in the interview, too. This is a very emotional situation. Davey, you're obviously pleased to be here.
I'll tell you what, this has been a long time coming. These guys have done a heck of a job all year. We've just had some tough breaks. We knew we were good enough to win, and we just kept digging. These guys kept working hard, and we've survived. And today we came out here with this Haviland Star Thunderbird, and we're in Victory Lane. I just want to say 2 things. First, these guys deserve it. And second, I want to dedicate this race to my dad and all the working people that come out to support us.
Davey, you were running well with the leaders, but it wasn't until the very last pit stop that you took off. Had you been holding back, or did they get the car absolutely right on that last pit stop?
Well, we were real close all day long, and we just kept making some fine-tune adjustments, and we saved 1 set of tires to the end of the race that we ran yesterday in practice, and we knew they were right on the money. and we just waited for the right opportunity. We played around a little bit out there trying to make it a little bit exciting, but during the early parts of the race, but at the end, I didn't want no competition.
They already gave you a trophy, your crew. What was it they handed to you as soon as you came into victory lane?
Well, it was a big old hot dog.
Robert Yates, you've got to be happy with this. 3rd career win for this team.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been a long time coming. The guys in the shop that aren't here, I know they're happy, and we're just happy to be here. It couldn't come. It had to be now,
Well, it's a team sport for sure. Everybody here has been dragged into victory lane by Davey Allison. Bob Jenkins, back up to you.
All right, congratulations to Davey Allison. Here are the top 10 finishers, as we will go to another break and come back with more. Davey Allison the winner, then Rusty Wallace, Bill Elliott, Morgan Shepherd, and Lake Speed. Finishing 6 through 10, Brett Bodine, Michael Waltrip, Kyle Petty, Rick Wilson, and Jeff Bodine.
Back at Michigan International Speedway, the champion Spark Plug 400 is history. This man was the Winston Cup point leader and remains the Winston Cup point leader, but I tell you, Rusty, those last couple laps were a little bit scary for you.
It was pretty shaky. I led the most laps today and had a real good car. And right there at the end on the last stop, we got a set of tires that just pushed real bad. And it allowed Davey to get ahead of me and go ahead and win the race. But it started pushing so much, everybody ran me down. Morgan got right behind me, and Bill Elliott got right behind me. And then Morgan bobbled up in turn 3 and 4. I mean, it was a real scramble to the start-finish line. And when Morgan bobbled, I got back in 2nd place and held him off to the end. So a 2nd place in the most laps, and we gained some points. And, I never think about points during the race, but I think about them after it. And I just like to say thank you to Mobile One, AC Spark Plugs, and Kodiak for everything they've done. They've done a real good job, and the car ran great today.
Rusty Wallace finishing 2nd. Morgan Shepherd standing up here. Super sub, they call him on the Winston Cup Tour. Morgan, congratulations on a good run in Buddy Baker's Red Baron Oldsmobile.
Yeah, I'm real excited that Buddy and them has let me drive the Red Baron Oldsmobile. They're going to let me fill in the rest of the year the races that I'm not going to run the Heinz Ketchup Buick. And, I'm just tickled to death. We should have had a 2nd place today, but I moved high on the last lap to miss some oil down low, and somebody had put some oil down high, so I got in the oil and almost lost it.
I'm sure Buddy Baker jumping up and down at home watching on ESPN. Buddy, he did a heck of a job finishing 4th in your stead. Hopefully you'll be back soon, and good luck to you. Let's go back upstairs to Bob Jenkins. Bob?
And our race summary shows that the winner was Davey Allison. He led 33 of the 200 laps. The average speed of record 156.860. 2 caution periods, total of 10 laps, 8 leaders, 19 lead changes, and 12 cars finished on the lead lap. We showed you the top 10. The other 2 cars that did finish on the lead lap, the number 44 car of Sterling Marlin and the 25 car of Ken Schrader. Back with some closing thoughts in a moment. Well, all afternoon, the Goodyear Blimp America from Houston, Texas, with pilot Don McDuff, has been showing us some excellent pictures. This thing is 192 feet long, 50 feet tall, and contains 202,000 cubic feet of volume. It's very impressive, though, when it appears at any sporting event, and it has given us some great pictures this afternoon from high above Michigan International Speedway. Well, we have been talking in the last few minutes here about the points battle, and indeed it does remain very, very tight as Rusty Wallace will continue to hold the lead in the battle for the Winston Cup. Bill Elliott now slips a little bit, having 2,852 points, and Dale Earnhardt now, who was credited with 29th finishing position, has 2,716. So as we head for Bristol next weekend, we certainly will pick up on this points battle once again. Well, we've seen this in Formula One a few times where one car helps another or a car helps a driver get to the pits, and that's what we saw in the late stages of this race as Dale Earnhardt provided the way to the pit area for Ricky Rudd. The Minnesota Vikings against the Phoenix Cardinals tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern Time here on ESPN. Next Friday night, qualifying for the Winston Cup race at Bristol, Tennessee. The Grand National race also Friday night, and then Saturday night we will have the Winston Cup race from Bristol, Tennessee. Thanks to the Hardee's Food Systems and to Kodak for their in-car cameras this afternoon. Davey Allison proudly wins the champion Sparkplug 400 at Michigan International Speedway. For Ned Jarrett, Gary Nelson, Larry Newber, Jerry Punch, and Dick Berggren, this is Bob Jenkins. So long, everyone.